Trapped in a world where monsters and disasters destroy everything, this guy doesn't just survive, he becomes the disaster itself. After being betrayed and thrown into the abyss, everyone thought he was dead, but instead of dying, he comes back stronger, colder, and completely unstoppable. Now every step he takes brings chaos. Every enemy he faces gets crushed, and the worst part is, he's not even trying that hard yet. While everyone struggles to stay alive, he's already playing on a completely different level. And if you think this is just another overpowered protagonist, you're not ready for what he's about to become. If you want to see how far this goes, come with me in this video. The story begins in a crowded place where people comment that it is the day of the grand wedding. The bride, Chen, has fled, and everyone wonders how the family of the immortal emperor could have made such a mistake. The immortal emperor Li Wuji once suppressed an entire era and founded the first immortal family, the Li family, yet now he has become a laughingstock. It is true that they are still the foremost family, but it is also a fact that over the past 100,000 years, each generation has grown weaker than the last. Even though Li Chen of this generation has decent talent, it will be extremely difficult to reverse this decline. Someone approaches and says there is no need to wait any longer, because Wingwu will not come and this will not end well. Suddenly, a loud noise cuts through the air, flying carriages approach, and the boy realizes that they have arrived. The elder remarks that it is a good thing the Chen family knows what is best for them, but in the next instant, someone points a spear. Everyone looks in shock as the elder is struck directly. The boy panics at the sight of his father. Soon after, someone approaches, and a soldier announces that the immortal emperor's family has allied with outer demons, and therefore no mercy should be shown, and no member of the family should be allowed to escape. The boy asks what is happening and what they want, but the soldiers reply that the order is to eliminate everyone, and that after the destruction of the immortal emperor's family, the spoils of war will be divided among the sects. Times have changed, and the immortal emperor's family must disappear. At that moment, the emperor pulls the spear out of his own body and declares that these people have chosen to unite to destroy his family, and orders his disciples to listen well and eliminate all of them. The disciples respond that now it is their turn, that they must activate the formation and refine the entire family. Everyone takes their battle positions. The emperor, surprised, asks if they too have turned against the family, reminding them that all present are close relatives of the Li family. The elder tells him not to blame them because this is the general trend. The sole family of the immortal emperor has existed for too long, and now that the path to immortality has opened once again and opportunities for ascension have reappeared, the time for a change of dynasty has come. The boy calls them traitors, but before he can act, a terrifying explosion erupts. A warrior warns that if any member of the Li family dares to resist, none should be left alive. The boy watches everything unfold as his little sister approaches, saying she is afraid. He clenches his fist and says he hates his own incompetence, because he cannot help the Li family. More sounds echo through the area as the warriors advance, saying they will take them all down at once. Lights explode everywhere, and new blasts shake the battlefield. The boy cries for his fourth uncle while everything around him turns into brutal war, with lives being lost non-stop. He looks around and realizes that everyone is being slaughtered, his brothers, his sisters, his relatives. He then draws his sword and says that he is useless as the young master of the Li family because he cannot do anything at such a moment of life and death. But even so, as a member of the family, he will fight to the end. At that instant, someone calls out to him. The boy turns and sees a girl. Li asks why she fled on the day of the wedding and what she is doing there. Qingwu replies that she came to save him, that she was cornered by her own family and ran there risking her life. The protagonist responds that she cannot help the Li family just by being there and tells her to leave because he himself will live or die alongside his family. However, Qingwu says there is still a way to save them. Lycan asks what that way is, and she replies that the solution is to open the emperor's treasure. As he is the next head of the family and the current patriarch is being held back, only he can open it now. After all, inside lies the legacy of the immortal emperor, and this is the only chance to save the family. The protagonist tries to respond, but Qingwu interrupts him, saying that every moment he hesitates, more of his relatives are dying. Lycan lowers his head and decides they will go to the emperor's treasure. The two move together, crossing a bridge. Along the way, Qingwu asks if that place is the legendary Great Abyss, and comments on how many demons must have been suppressed there over countless years, even saying she heard that a celestial demon was sealed there by the immortal emperor himself. The protagonist explains that the Great Abyss has no bottom, and that falling into it means certain death. Soon after, they stop. Qingwu asks if that is the emperor's treasure and says she heard that inside are many treasures the immortal emperor Li obtained from the 9 heavens and 10 lands, urging him to open it quickly. Lycan simply watches, and Qingwu, embarrassed, corrects herself, saying that what she meant is that if they obtain some of those artifacts, they might still be able to save the Li family. The protagonist replies that this is the first time the family has opened the immortal emperor's treasure, so he has no idea what lies inside. Then Lycan bites his finger and, using his own blood, finally opens the emperor's treasure. The protagonist declares that the treasure is open. A voice suddenly says that the boy is far too easy to deceive. Lycan looks to the side and sees a young man standing beside her. Qingwu confirms it, saying that she even fled on the wedding day and yet he still believed her, calling him naively foolish. The protagonist understands everything and says he was deceived just to open the emperor's treasure, realizing that she is on their side. Qingwu then orders her brother Yuntian to eliminate him, stating that with the treasure open, they will gain the greatest merit. Yuntian replies that as thanks, he will at least leave a complete corpse after using him. Lycan becomes enraged and charges forward, declaring that he will fight them all to the end. Yuntian scoffs and asks how a piece of trash dares to resist, saying he is overestimating himself. He then unleashes his power and sends him flying, throwing him off the cliff. The protagonist falls while the little girl desperately calls out for her brother. As he falls, Lycan engraves in his mind the names Qingwu, Yuntian, and all those involved, swearing that no matter how many reincarnations pass, he will remember each of them. Meanwhile, the little girl continues crying and calling for him. Yuntian then asks what they should do with her, and Qingwu replies that the bloodline of the immortal emperor's family is extremely valuable, so they should keep her as a blood slave and slowly extract it. The girl, furious, stands up, calls Qingwu a cruel woman, and demands that she return her brother. In a burst of anger, she bites her arm. Qingwu grits her teeth, reacts violently, and knocks her to the ground, asking how she dares to act like that and warning that when they return, she will personally torment her. 8 years pass, and in a dark place, a creature announces that the time has come. With the alignment of the sun and moon on that day, the young master will finally lead them out of the great abyss, and after hundreds of years of waiting, the chance to leave has finally arrived. The creatures kneel and salute young Master Feng, who is none other than Lycan, the same one who was thrown off the cliff 8 years ago. Now he has become their leader. He explains that the rare phenomenon of the sun and moon alignment, which occurs only once every 100,000 years, is happening now, and that the barrier of the great abyss is weaker than ever, making this their only chance to escape. At that moment, someone approaches and asks if he is sure he wants to leave. The creatures recognize the presence and immediately kneel before Lady Zi. She states that everything outside is illusory and fleeting, that this is the true realm, and asks why he would not stay to await the greatest opportunity for ascension in that mortal world. The protagonist replies that he must leave, as he has waited 8 years for this moment. Zi insists, asking if he would not reconsider and remain. The creatures tremble at the overwhelming aura she emits. Lycan understands the situation and says she does not intend to force him, because if she wanted to, she would not waste time speaking to him. He lets out a sigh. Lady Zi then asks him to wait a moment and hands him a pouch, saying that after he leaves, he must complete 9 tasks for her. Li accepts, stating that he will fulfill her request and thanks her for granting him a new life. After she departs, the creatures comment in relief that they thought they would die there, since she usually speaks only a single sentence that decides life or death, and that the fact she spoke so much with the young master means she truly values him. The protagonist sighs and recalls that beneath the great abyss lie 100,000 demons, and that they must all clearly understand why he is eliminating the 18 demon lords. The creatures respond that only he can leave that place and also free them, promising that once they escape, they will obey all his orders, and anyone who disobeys will be reduced to ashes. Suddenly, a blinding light appears along with a terrifying energy. The creatures realize that the sun and moon phenomenon has begun. Lycan bids farewell to Lady Zi and calls everyone to advance with him. They move forward together as lightning spreads, and the ground trembles beneath their feet. The protagonist explains that this is the regional barrier separating the great abyss from the human continent, and that he must open the passage with his own hands. A portal begins to form, releasing violent electric discharges. The creatures observe, saying that this is celestial lightning capable of destroying the world. Lycan advances and strikes the barrier, demanding that it open. A powerful bolt of lightning descends toward him. One of the creatures warns him to be careful and not to face the lightning tribulation head-on. Even so, the protagonist continues forward and strikes the barrier again, stating that no matter how fierce the celestial lightning may be, the pain he endured in the great abyss over the years is millions of times worse, so this trial cannot even compare. He looks to the sky and challenges it, saying that if it has enough power, it should destroy him at once. Otherwise, nothing will stop him from leaving. He then gathers all his strength and delivers another blow until the barrier finally shatters. The creatures rejoice at the sight of the opened passage, saying that the regional barrier has finally been broken, and that the young master is truly formidable. Because if that celestial lightning had struck any of them, they would have long since turned to ashes, and so they advanced together without hesitation. In another place, before several graves, a girl lights incense and says that 8 years have passed since the Li family was annihilated. She, Zier, says she misses everyone dearly and wishes she could have gone with him, but she still has a purpose to fulfill, to take revenge and clear the name of the immortal emperor's family because they never conspired with outer demons. Those people destroyed everything and wanted to completely tear apart the Li family. At that moment, someone approaches and tells her not to be so sad, warning that her body is already weak and crying too much will only worsen her condition, and this person is Bai Shuang. Xie replies that although Bai Shuang was sent by the sacred land of chaos to protect her, if not for her care over all these years, she likely would have lost her life long ago, and so her gratitude is immense. Bai Shuang comments that when she arrived, Xie was only 4 or 5 years old, had suffered family tragedies, lost her relatives, and was reduced to a blood slave at such a young age, which is truly pitiful. And even as a disciple of the sacred land of chaos, she cannot remain indifferent to that. Zier says that if one day her family can rise again, she will certainly repay everything. Bai Shuang then explains that regardless of right or wrong, it was the forces of the 3 immortal sects, the 6 sacred lands, and the 12 great clans that destroyed the Li family, and that even considering only the sacred land of chaos, it is already far too powerful, something the family could not have faced even at its peak, much less now. Xie lowers her head and Bai Shuang tries to end the subject, telling her to let it go and not relive such painful memories, as they must prepare because the sacred land will soon return to collect blood again. Suddenly, Zier notices something strange as one of the graves begins to glow. The two turn in surprise and Bai Shuang asks what is happening. Zier replies that it is her brother's spirit tablet and that it is glowing, which means her brother is still alive. Bai Shuang tries to argue, saying that as far as she remembers, the young master of the Li family fell into the great abyss back then. Xie confirms that he did fall, but insists that the glowing tablet proves he is still alive. Bai Shuang says that is impossible, as it is common knowledge that no living being can leave the great abyss. Xie then asks if there is any possibility that he did not actually fall, but Bai Shuang replies that this makes no sense, since it was the Holy Sun himself who threw him into the abyss, and someone like that would not make such a basic mistake. Even so, Zier insists that no matter what happens, she believes her brother is alive, because all those spirit tablets are connected to the family's blood, and the immortal emperor's lineage maintains that link, so it cannot be wrong. Bai Shuang says she hopes she is right, but fears that in the end, it may only bring more disappointment. At that moment, the door is kicked open, and an elder enters, saying it is time for the blood collection. Zier sits in a chair as the elder summons a snake and orders it to extract her blood. Then the serpent starts draining her, causing her pain, while Bai Shuang tries to comfort her, saying she should not be afraid because it will soon be over. The elder comments that she had not appeared there for 3 months, but now she looks even more attractive, and some men laugh, suggesting he take the opportunity to enjoy himself. Bai Shuang immediately intervenes, saying he was sent only to collect blood and should not break the rules. The elder responds with a disdain, saying she is a punished person and has no right to lecture him, and that even if he breaks the rules, she can do nothing about it. Bai Shuang stands in front of Zier and says that if he is only collecting blood, she will not interfere, but if he tries anything else, she will report him to the Holy Sun. The elder clenches his fist and strikes her, sending her flying, saying she is seeking her own death. Bai Shuang crashes into pillars and falls to the ground as Zier panics and asks if she is okay. Even injured, Bai Shuang says she is fine, but admits that his cultivation has reached the final stage of the first realm and that she is no match for him. The elder then kicks her, saying that if she cannot fight him, she should stop interfering and just serve him, adding that he will make her more obedient in the future. Even on the ground, Bai Shuang declares that if he dares touch her, she will not let him get away with it. At that moment, one of the men steps on her, pinning her down, saying she can barely protect herself and still dares to threaten others, reminding her that she was demoted there by the sacred land and has interfered with plans several times, and that it would be better to simply eliminate her. The leader says killing her would be too boring, since she always prevented him from touching Xie, so today he will make her watch everything. The men agree, saying he is brilliant and that Bai Shuang should keep her eyes open and watch carefully. Bai Shuang asks if he truly does not respect the Holy Sun and if he is not afraid of punishment. The leader laughs and says punishment is a joke, since the Holy Sun's wedding is approaching and no one will care about something so minor, adding that as long as the blood of the immortal emperor's descendant is delivered regularly, the Holy Sun will not ask about anything else. He also says that, in addition, she probably does not know, but his cousin has already been promoted to head of that branch of the sacred land of chaos, so he controls everything there and no one can touch him. Bai Shuang asks if there is truly no way to escape today. Meanwhile, elsewhere, someone walks forward. It is the protagonist with his group, saying that 8 years have passed and he has finally left the Great Abyss and returned to the human world. But aside from him, no one from his family is still alive. The creatures ask where they will go now, and Lycan replies that they will naturally take revenge, settling accounts with each of them. Suddenly, he is shocked and asks if that is the aura of the Lai family bloodline, saying he sensed the immortal emperor's lineage and wondering if any family member is still alive. Lycan immediately moves and tells everyone to follow him. Meanwhile, back at the other location, the leader approaches Zir and tells her to feel less pain, reaching toward her body. Zir stares at him and slaps his face. The leader steps back, curses her, and says she does not know what is good for her. A pressure bursts forth, sending Zir flying. The leader says he will make sure to torment her. Zir replies that if he dares touch her, her brother will not let him escape. The leader asks if she means that young man who fell into the Great Abyss and tells her to stop dreaming, saying no one survives there, and that her brother likely does not even have bones left. Zir insists he is still alive and will certainly come to kill him. The leader continues mocking her and says that if he is alive, then he should show himself. Suddenly, a noise is heard. The leader turns and asks who is there. The protagonist steps forward and states who he is. Zir recognizes him and says it really is her brother. Lycan replies that he has returned. The leader is shocked and says that is impossible. Bai Shuang is also stunned and asks if that truly is the young master of the Li family and if he is really alive. The elder observes and asks what is going on with that boy. The leader claims he must be an imposter, as it is impossible for anyone to leave the Great Abyss, something that goes against all common sense of cultivation. The elder then charges to attack him, but the protagonist is faster, grabbing him by the neck and lifting him up. The elder's eyes begin to water until his neck is snapped and he falls dead to the ground. The leader says that this is the territory of the sacred land of chaos and asks if he dares kill someone there. Lycan replies that he will eliminate everyone from the sacred land of chaos and that today he will annihilate this place. The leader calls him arrogant and orders his men to take him down. The men rush forward together, saying he is being presumptuous inside the branch hall of the sacred land of chaos and that he should surrender. The ground cracks under the protagonist's pressure as he tells everyone to disappear. An overwhelming force erupts, and with a single strike, all of them are sent flying. The leader is stunned and asks what kind of power that is. Lycan then moves quickly and asks his sister if that thing is draining her blood. Zir tells him to be careful as the snake is very strong. The leader explains that it is a spiritual serpent created by the Holy Sun to absorb the immortal emperor's lineage and warns them not to touch it, saying its strength can crush outer disciples and facing it is courting death. Even so, the protagonist grabs the snake with his bare hands and stares at it. The pressure intensifies until an energy bursts forth and the snake disappears. The leader asks if he dares destroy the Holy Sun's spiritual beast and says he will face the consequences, realizing the boy is stronger than expected and deciding to seek help from his cousin. They flee and Zir tells him not to let them escape, as there are many disciples throughout that hall. The protagonist replies that there is no need to worry as no one will escape. Zir raises her arm and Lycan examines it, saying her body is extremely weak, with her bloodline nearly depleted and her spiritual meridians exhausted, showing signs of collapse, and that over the years her blood has been drained repeatedly. Bai Shuang explains that every 3 months, almost all of her blood is drained, and that her body is in a critically weakened state, saying that if she cannot obtain something extremely nourishing to restore her vitality, her lifespan will not be long. Zir says Bai Shuang is like a sister to her, and that even though she is a disciple of the sacred land of chaos, she cared for her all these years, and without her she likely would have died long ago. Bai Shuang then asks how he managed to survive the Great Abyss and return, saying he is the first person in all eternity to come back alive, which is truly a miracle. The protagonist replies that if he needs a reason, it was the overwhelming hatred that drove him to escape that place, and now that he has returned, he will not let any of the sects involved escape, including the sacred land of chaos. Bai Shuang says that although his strength is great and he can defeat someone like Li Hu, there are countless disciples even stronger within the sacred land of chaos, not to mention the elders and other extremely powerful experts. Lycan asks what the problem is, and Bai Shuang urges him to listen to her advice, saying he should take Zir and flee as far as possible, hide and abandon any idea of revenge, because the sacred land of chaos is a colossal force he cannot deal with. Zir, worried, says she does not want anything bad to happen to him again. The protagonist calls her, and Zir says her hatred is as deep as the sea, that she wants revenge until the very end, and that she will follow him even if it means death without any regret. Bai Shuang listens and sighs. Lycan then says they should leave first, but at that moment someone appears. The two girls look in shock as they see creatures stepping over the defeated men. Bai Shuang, frightened, asks who they are, and the protagonist tells her not to be afraid, explaining they are all on his side. One of the creatures asks if they should eliminate everyone there. Li Hu tries to resist and says he cannot do that because his cousin is Liang, the branch leader of the sacred land of chaos, and that if he dares touch him, he will surely lose his life. Lycan tells them to release him, and the creature immediately lifts its foot. Believing he has the upper hand, Li Hu says he is wise to know when to retreat and that he should also release the other subordinates. The protagonist coldly replies not to leave anyone else. Li Hu becomes terrified as the creatures advance and slaughter all the men there, leaving him completely horrified. Lycan grabs his clothes and orders him to call his cousin and bring all the members of the Sacred Land of Chaos branch to that place, saying he will wait right there. Li Hu asks if he wants to die and says he will grant that wish, but warns him not to run. Bai Shuang comments that if she were him, she would not do something so reckless, asking if he understands how dangerous it is, since there are hundreds of disciples in that branch, along with Liang, whose strength is extremely high, saying he is being as irresponsible as Jir. One of the creatures reacts angrily, asking how she dares speak to the young master like that, but the protagonist intervenes and says it is fine. Bai Shuang explains that after so many years, she has come to see Sierre as her own sister and does not want anything to happen to her. Sierre says she believes in her brother, takes Bai Shuang's hand, and says she can believe as well. Bai Shuang hesitates, pats her head, and says she is a good girl, but reiterates that as a disciple of the Sacred Land of Chaos, she knows just how powerful that sect is, saying that a single person facing an entire sect is like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Lycan then asks if besides her there are any other family members still alive. Seer says yes, that she was not the only direct descendant captured and enslaved back then, but she does not know who they are or where they are. The protagonist tells her not to worry because from now on no one will be able to intimidate her, and that he will settle accounts with every family involved and avenge the Li family. Right there, Lycan takes the pouch and remembers that he promised that woman he would complete 9 tasks after leaving the abyss, saying she is the most mysterious person he has ever met, that she gave him a new life, and therefore he must fulfill his promise. He decides to check the first task, reads the note, and is surprised to discover that he must annul an engagement, commenting that although Qingwu caused nothing but trouble, the engagement with her has not yet been officially cancelled. At that moment, the sound of breaking stone echoes through the area. Liang appears, saying he wants to see who is so arrogant as to act like that there. Li Hu points at the protagonist and says it is the boy claiming to be Lycan of the Li family, though he is not sure if it is true. Liang dismisses it, saying he must be pretending, questioning how that useless young master could have survived the Great Abyss, and asks who he really is. The protagonist simply looks at him with disdain and asks if all the members of the Sacred Land of Chaos have arrived. Liang replies that of course they are all there, and that today he will not be able to escape, even if he had wings. Lycan lets out a cold smile and asks if everyone is ready to begin. The creatures become excited and say they can no longer wait, that their blades have long craved fresh blood and that this will be a feast. The protagonist then orders them to advance and leave no one alive. Liang questions if everyone heard what he said, and Li Hu mockingly repeats that he ordered no one to be left alive, laughing and calling him ignorant for saying such a thing. In the next instant, one of the creatures moves at incredible speed, drives its arm through Li Hu's body, and asks if he can still laugh now. Li Hu is killed instantly and collapses to the ground. Liang, furious, asks how he dares do that. The other creatures advance, repeating the young master's order to leave no one alive, saying they have not tasted fresh blood for hundreds of years. Liang continues to question how they dare act like that within the territory of the Sacred Land of Chaos, calling it extreme arrogance. The protagonist ignores him and asks where Yuntian is. Liang reacts indignantly and asks if he dares refer to the Holy Sun by name, then turns to Bai Shuang and orders her to eliminate the boy. Bai Shuang replies that she is no match for him. Liang accuses her of disobeying orders and asks if she is trying to become a traitor to the Sacred Land of Chaos. Bai Shuang says she is not a traitor, she simply does not agree with the sect's actions. Liang then decides to act himself, saying he will personally exterminate everyone there. He takes a fighting stance and executes the divine wood palm technique. Bai Shuang immediately warns the protagonist to be careful, saying it is a secret technique of the Sacred Land of Chaos, and that he must not make contact with it. Even so, the protagonist blocks the attack directly. Liang is surprised and says he truly has some strength, but that he is underestimating the sect's secret techniques. Lycan touches his hand and something immediately begins to form. Bai Shuang explains that she had warned him not to touch it because once entangled by the spiritual vines generated by the divine wood palm, his spiritual power would be sealed instantly, causing him to lose all combat ability. Liang mocks him, saying even that traitor warned him, and yet he still fell into the trap, calling him stubborn and saying he is now completely at his mercy. However, the vines are instantly cut apart and the protagonist says he is overthinking it. Liang is confused and says his spiritual power should have been sealed, asking how that is possible. Before he can react, Lycan strikes him directly, sending him crashing to the ground. Baishuang watches in shock, realizing Liang has no ability to fight back against him. The protagonist then asks once more where Yuntian is. Liang, lying on the ground, says the Holy Sun is above and is not someone he can simply demand to see. Lycan steps on his arm, making him scream in pain, then crushes his leg as well. Unable to endure any longer, Liang says he will tell him, revealing that in a few days the Holy Sun will become engaged to Qingwu of the Chen family, and that he will go to the family's residence for it. Liang, lying on the ground, begs to be spared, saying that he is the Hall Master of the Chaos Sacred Land, and that if he is killed, the Chaos Sacred Land will not let it go. The protagonist places his foot on his neck, pressing him against the ground. One of the creatures approaches and comments that everything is already settled, saying that that number of people isn't even enough for a real massacre, and asks what their next destination will be, stating that following the young master in such a satisfying slaughter was worthwhile. Lycan replies that the next stop will be the Chen family. Sierre says she wants to go back home and take a look, and the protagonist agrees, saying they will first return to the Li family. Sierre then calls Baishuang to go with them, but Baishuang replies that she is still a disciple of the Chaos Sacred Land and must return, only asking the young master to take good care of Sierre. Sierre doesn't accept that decision well, but before she can insist, one of the creatures steps in front of Baishuang and tells her to stop. Baishuang asks what the young master means by that, and Lycan explains that with the Chaos Sacred Land branch destroyed and his sister rescued, she will likely be punished upon returning, so he questions why she doesn't come with them. Baishuang says she still has unfinished matters within the Chaos Sacred Land and cannot simply leave. One of the creatures comments that they shouldn't let her go, because once she returns, the Chaos Sacred Land will likely discover that he is still alive, which could interfere with their next plans, suggesting it would be better to keep her under control. Even so, the protagonist decides to let her go. The creature comments that the young master has grown soft and that it's better to leave. Baishuang then walks away. About half an hour later, the creatures fly alongside the young master. Lycan comments that he fell into the Great Abyss right after opening the Emperor's treasure back then, recalling that it was the first time the Li family opened it, and asks Sierre if she knows what items were obtained from it. Sierre replies that she isn't sure, but she knows the treasure was divided among the 3 immortal sects and the 6 sacred lands, while the 12 great clans didn't even have the chance to participate in the division. She adds that later she discovered the reason for opening the treasure was related to the so-called Heavenly Road, and that the items obtained there would be of great help in ascending that path in the future. The protagonist reflects and wonders if this heavenly road is the same as the path to immortality, recalling that the lady had suggested he stay and wait for the greatest immortal opportunity, and begins to consider whether all of this is connected to ascending the heavenly road. Sierre then says they've arrived, pointing out that just beyond that mountain lies the old residence of the Li family, remembering that when she was a child she used to play there. They land and notice people present. Lycan observes and questions what is happening. Sierre is also surprised and asks if she is seeing correctly because there are people living in the ancestral lands of the Li family. The protagonist states that the family was completely exterminated, so anyone there can only be an enemy, never an ally, and orders them to surround the area and not let anyone escape, while he himself will investigate. Looking more closely, Sierre recognizes the group and says it is the Deep Fire Sect, one of the 12 great clans that participated in the destruction of the Li family, concluding that they were the ones who took over the ancestral lands. 2 men approach and ask what they are doing there. Lycan stares at them and returns the question, asking what they are doing in that place. They reply that this is the territory of the Deep Fire Sect, so it is natural for them to be there. The protagonist counters that this place is his home, so it is also natural for him to be there. They mock him and ask if he is trying to please them, saying that if he offers 50 spirit stones as a sign of respect, they might allow him to join the Deep Fire Sect, and ask what he thinks about that. Then one of them even suggests that if the girl accompanies them, that would also be acceptable. Suddenly a swift movement occurs, and one of the elders' eyes widen as his arm is violently twisted. Even lying on the ground, he still tries to maintain arrogance and asks how he dares to act like that. Lycan then extends his arm and strikes his face with force. The other elder, frightened, asks if he is some kind of demon and tries to flee. But the protagonist appears in front of him and says he has two questions. First, he wants to know why the Deep Fire sect occupied the ancestral lands of the Lee family. The elder, terrified, begs not to be killed and says he will tell everything, explaining that at that time, the Deep Fire sect participated in dividing the lands of the Lee family, and that those ancestral lands were assigned to them and have been used ever since as a secondary mountain gate to recruit disciples. Lycan then asks the second question, wanting to know who is the strongest there, and what that person's cultivation level is. The elder replies that the one in charge is Chang Zai, the fourth elder of the Deep Fire sect, and that he himself is only an outer disciple, with no knowledge of that elder's cultivation level. The protagonist reacts by saying that Chang Zai, master of the fifth branch, is one of the 8 direct branches of the family, and that the family was destroyed so quickly back then, precisely because many relatives rebelled at the decisive moment, catching everyone off guard so he doesn't believe that this traitor is truly there. Zier states that they absolutely cannot let that traitor go unpunished. Lycan then tells them to move and enter. The disciple tries to warn them, saying they should wait because he is like a terrifying war god, and that cold aura is already pressing him so much that he can barely breathe, concluding that the Deep Fire sect is no longer safe and that he must flee immediately. Before he can escape, a creature appears in front of him and asks where he thinks he's going. The disciple, frightened, asks who he is, and the creature replies that the young master ordered that no one should escape. Then the creature opens a mouth in its own hand and devours him, and a scream echoes. Zier looks around and comments that the place still looks the same as before, but everything has changed, and there are no relatives left. At that moment, someone approaches and asks if they are also disciples participating in the assessment. The two remain silent. The boy continues speaking and tells them to perform well in the test, because the first place will have an audience with the fourth elder. The protagonist becomes interested and asks about this audience with Chang Zai, saying that it is perfect. The boy reacts indignantly and asks how he dares call the elder by name, reminding that it is the 50th anniversary of the fourth elder, and that if anyone displeases him, no one will be able to protect them. Lycan simply smiles, and the boy leaves. Zier asks if they should participate in the test, and the protagonist replies yes, saying they will prepare a surprise for Chang Zai. Then they arrive at a place full of people where everyone is talking, saying they are newly arrived disciples, and that if they manage to get first place and an audience with the fourth elder, they can become direct disciples, which would be a unique opportunity for ascension, so everyone must give their best. A voice then orders everyone to be silent as the test is about to begin. At that moment, a beautiful girl approaches, drawing everyone's attention. The young men are impressed and call her the 9th young lady, asking why she is there. The 9th young lady replies that she only came to observe, since that place used to be the land of the immortal emperor's family, the Li family, and many places there are still worthy of admiration. The young men are enchanted and comment that she is the 9th young lady of the Celestial Gate, saying her beauty makes anyone fall in love at first sight. Lycan asks about the Celestial Gate, and Zier explains that it is a mysterious sect that appeared only in recent years, whose origin no one knows, although there are rumors that it is an ancient sect, and that besides being mysterious, it is also extremely powerful, with that young woman being a representative who travels among various forces as an honored guest. So it is strange to see her there in the Li family lands. The 9th young lady tells them not to worry about her and to continue. The disciple in charge of the test then asks for attention and explains that the first stage is simple. Each participant must strike the giant stone in front of them with all their strength, and whoever leaves the deepest fist mark will be the winner. A muscular young man volunteers and takes an attack stance. The disciple observes and comments that it is not bad at all, as it shows good mastery of body conditioning, and that the disciples recruited this time have good aptitude. The young man strikes the stone and leaves a mark, but not very deep, complaining that the stone is extremely hard. The disciple explains that it is a black tortoise stone, whose hardness rivals deep iron, and that without great skill, it is impossible even to shake it. Another participant prepares, but someone interrupts. It is the protagonist. The bald man asks what he wants, and Lycan replies that to avoid wasting time, he will go first. The disciple finds it strange and asks what he means. Without answering, the protagonist delivers a direct punch and completely shatters the stone. Everyone is shocked, and even the 9th young lady is surprised. The disciple, in disbelief, asks if the black tortoise stone was really destroyed. The 9th young lady observes carefully and comments that that strike showed no fluctuation of spiritual energy, being the ultimate manifestation of physical strength, concluding that he is someone out of the ordinary. The disciple then declares that he is the first to destroy that stone in thousands of years in the Deep Fire sect, stating that such strength is impressive, and that if he has an audience with the fourth elder, his qualification will be unquestionable. Lycan simply says to proceed to the next stage. At the side, the disciple says that the second test is very simple. In the arena, everyone fights without restrictions, and whoever remains standing last wins. The young men look directly at the boy who shattered the black tortoise stone with a single punch earlier, afraid they are no match for him, and decide they must eliminate him together first, then compete among themselves for the winner. The protagonist states that this is exactly what he was thinking as well and tells everyone to come at him at once. Everyone becomes furious, calling him arrogant, asking how he dares challenge so many at once, and saying he is courting death. Two boys advance from behind him, but Lycan immediately strikes them, along with the one in front and everyone around. Two more try to approach, but they are also hit, and with just one strike, everyone is sent flying. The young men scream in pain until they are completely defeated. The disciple is shocked to see that. The protagonist says it's over. The disciple, incredulous, asks how that is possible, saying everything happened in the blink of an eye. The ninth young lady observes and comments that his movements were precise and ruthless, without any waste, each action pushing the body to its limit, and wonders how someone so young could come to the Deep Fire sect as just an outer disciple. Lycan then asks if he can now see Changzai, and the disciple replies yes. The ninth young lady steps forward and asks if she can get to know him, saying she is from the Celestial Gate, but the protagonist simply keeps walking and says he has no interest. The disciple is indignant and questions how he dares be so rude to her, but the ninth young lady says it's fine, as it has been a long time since she met someone with such personality. At a banquet, everyone is gathered. A man declares that that day marks the 50th anniversary of the fourth elder and that they are there to celebrate together, wishing him even greater progress within the Deep Fire sect. The fourth elder deeply thanks everyone for their presence, especially for the visit of the ninth young lady of the Celestial Gate, saying the sect is truly honored, and invites everyone to enjoy the food and drinks. A man comments that now that the main branch of the family has disappeared, with his prestige he should take control of the immortal emperor's family. Another agrees, saying that at that time the main branch conspired with external demons and was completely annihilated. But the family name can still continue, and that the fourth elder should rightfully assume the position of head. The fourth elder responds that they are being too kind, but admits that he thinks the same. A bald man congratulates him in advance as the head of the family, raising a toast. Changzai declares that that night no one will leave until they are completely drunk. The disciple announces that the champion of the new assessment has been chosen and asks if he should call him. The fourth elder orders him to bring him. The disciple then calls the winner to enter, and the protagonist appears. Changzai asks his name, and Lycan replies. The ninth young lady thinks he's there for a different purpose, just like her. The fourth elder comments that the name sounds familiar until he remembers that a useless young master of the Li family also had that name, adding that it is a pity that that person is already dead. He orders a cup of wine to be served, saying that from that moment on, he will be one of his men. The disciple hands the cup and tells him to hurry, as it is a great opportunity. The protagonist, however, remains still. The bald man gets angry and asks what he's waiting for, ordering him to kneel and toast the elder to secure a bright future. At that moment, Lycan throws the drink directly in the elder's face. The bald man shouts, asking what he is doing. The fourth elder asks if that was an accident or intentional. The protagonist stares at him, walks up, and slaps him across the face. Everyone is completely shocked. The ninth young lady is also surprised. Changzai is sent crashing to the ground along with the food. Some guests do not understand what is happening and ask what he is trying to do. The fourth elder declares that he has rebelled. A disciple shouts that he dared to disrespect an elder and advances to eliminate him, but the protagonist extends his hand and knocks him down with a single strike. Changzai, dazed, says he defeated the best outer disciple of the Deep Fire sect with a single move and asks who he really is. Lycan then asks if he truly doesn't recognize him. The fourth elder looks at his face carefully and questions if he has seen him before, until his eyes widen as he finally recognizes him. The protagonist says that he finally remembers. Changzai, in shock, asks how that is possible, how he could still be alive. Everyone around becomes confused and starts questioning whether he is the young master of the Li family, remembering that he had fallen into the abyss and wondering how he managed to get out and survive. The ninth young lady wonders if the young master of the Li family really came out alive from the great abyss and realizes this is shocking news, as the secret of that place might finally be revealed. The fourth elder orders everyone to be silent and says that no matter how he survived, since he dared to appear there, he must lose his life again. The blonde agrees, saying they must not let that remnant escape, as eliminating him will be a great achievement. The ninth young lady intervenes and tells them to stop. Changzai laughs and tells her not to worry, that she will also receive credit for the boy's death. However, she steps forward and says he is thinking too much, making it clear that she is protecting the young man and that no one can lay a finger on him. Lycan is confused while the fourth elder asks what she means by that. She replies that it is simple, she will take him with her, and whoever tries to kill him will be eliminated by her. She also tells the boy not to be afraid, that he can return with her to the Celestial Gate, where his safety will be guaranteed. The protagonist refuses, saying it is not necessary and that she is not qualified to interfere in his affairs. The ninth young lady becomes irritated, asking why his words are so unpleasant. Changzai laughs again and says that it seems the fool does not appreciate her kindness, so there is no reason to hesitate. He will be eliminated right there. A man approaches with a sword and says there is no need for the elder to act personally against a mere youth. He will handle it himself. The man tells him to choose how he wants to die. The ninth young lady warns that that man is the leader of the Blade Gang, whose swordsmanship is extremely fierce, making him a difficult opponent. However, Lycan moves quickly and defeats him with a single devastating strike, sending him flying. The ninth young lady sighs and says to ignore what she said earlier. Everyone is shocked to see the opponent defeated with just one blow, questioning if that boy was not considered useless and how he became so powerful. A priest steps forward and says that his talent deserves his attention and that he will eliminate him to celebrate the fourth elder's birthday. He summons a talisman and declares the orthodox law of the five thunders, saying he will ensure the boy disappears without a trace. The protagonist simply grabs the talisman between his fingers. The priest is stunned, while Lycan remains completely unharmed. The priest cannot believe it, saying he is trying to hold a thunder talisman with his bare hands and asking if he does not fear death. The protagonist releases overwhelming power and shatters the talisman into pieces. The priest is shocked, unable to understand how someone could crush a thunder talisman like that. The ninth young lady observes that there is something strange about that young man's strength, that he's not an ordinary cultivator, and her interest in him grows even more. Lycan approaches the priest, places his hand on his face, and the man asks what he is doing. The protagonist then releases his energy and declares that he can not only destroy thunder spells, but also destroy him. Lightning emerges, and the priest is instantly eliminated. The bald man watches in shock, noting that he was also defeated, remembering that Taoist Kanglian cultivated for 200 years and reached the second realm, with 5 energies converging at the origin, and even so was killed without resistance. Lycan then looks at the fourth elder and says he is next. Changzai steps back in fear and says he is not worthy, stating that this is the territory of the Deep Fire sect and ordering everyone to attack together, promising to make whoever kills him a true disciple. The guards advance and surround him, confident that together they can defeat that boy, competing among themselves for the final blow. As they advance, 3 of them are defeated with a single strike. The fourth elder realizes the situation is far too strange, thinking he must inform the sect master immediately. The protagonist continues fighting and eliminates the guards with overwhelming force. Changzai tries to flee, saying those disciples only serve to delay him, and that the boy is naive for thinking he can stop him. Suddenly, a body falls in front of him, and Lycan appears right behind him, saying that he had said he would be next. The fourth elder panics, unable to understand how that happened, while the surviving guards say he is a monster, because even with so many attacking, they could not slow him down at all. The protagonist orders him to kneel and apologize. Changzai laughs nervously and says he thinks he can do something against him, declaring that he will kill him. Lycan strikes his leg, making him scream in pain and fall to the ground. Then the protagonist steps on him, terrifying everyone around. Then Lycan declares that as the head of the Lai lineage, he betrayed the Li family and became a traitor, and that his crime deserves death. The fourth elder begs to be spared, saying he recognizes his mistake, but in the next moment, a sword pierces his body from Zier's hands. On the verge of death, tears run down Changzai's face while Zier tells him to remember her, revealing that for 8 years she thought every day about killing them to avenge the Li family, and that she has finally fulfilled that wish. The fourth elder, still trying to resist, says that the Li family was destroyed by the entire world and questions whether they would be able to eliminate everyone, asking if they have that ability. The protagonist replies that it is not something he needs to worry about. Then Lycan places his finger on his forehead, releases a light, removes his hand, and Changzai is completely eliminated. The guards, upon seeing the fourth elder's death, panic and begin to flee. Outside of the creatures wait, and a maid comments that she wonders how the young master is doing, worried about the number of Deep Fire sect disciples inside. The servant beside her says there is no need to worry, recalling that the young master crawled out of the frozen side and was taken in by Miss Zai, and that she is worrying for nothing. The maid agrees and explains that the frozen side is known as the dwelling of 100,000 vengeful spirits, and that those who manage to come out of there are infinitely more cruel than those spirits. At that moment, some guards manage to escape and try to flee, but they are intercepted by the 2 creatures, becoming terrified upon seeing them. The maid comments that someone managed to escape, and the other coldly replies to enjoy the feast. Meanwhile, inside, the ninth young lady walks around observing the situation and comments that many people escaped and that the news of his return from the Great Abyss will spread across the continent in a single night, and that only the Celestial Gate can protect him. The protagonist replies that the news will not leak. She asks what he means, and Lycan says it is because no one will leave alive. The ninth young lady says that is impossible since hundreds of disciples fled in all directions, and he could not stop them all. At that moment, several creatures approach and report that everyone in the west was annihilated, no one escaped. In the southeast, there were also no survivors. In the north, all were eliminated. In the southwest, likewise. And in the east, the mission was also completed. The ninth young lady realizes the strength of those presences and asks if they are all his subordinates. The protagonist orders those outside to come in, saying that only she is still alive. The ninth young lady asks if he intends to eliminate her as well, and Lycan asks her to give him a reason to spare her. She replies that she just spoke in his favor and that the invitation to join the Celestial Gate was only out of interest in the Great Abyss, and that regardless of his answer, her sect would not force him. The protagonist asks if there is anything else, and she adds that now he has become an enemy of everyone, but that the Celestial Gate did not participate in the destruction of the Lai family and that perhaps they can cooperate, since he will certainly need them in the future, also stating that he might not even be able to eliminate her. Lycan remains silent for a moment and then declares that he will spare her life. Zier asks if he really intended to kill her, and the protagonist replies that they are not demons and do not kill innocents indiscriminately, only those who harmed the Li family in the past. Zier feels relieved upon hearing that. The ninth young lady then asks what the next step will be, and Lycan replies that they will go to the Chen family. She asks if it is the family where the young master's fiancé, Chen Qingwu, lives, mentioning that according to information, the family is about to arrange a marriage with the holy son of the Chaos Sacred Land, commenting that things are getting interesting. In the city of Changzhou, the protagonist moves with his group until they stop in front of the entrance to Yanzhou City, territory of the Chen family. Suddenly, Zier kneels, and Lycan becomes concerned, asking what happened. She feels something strange and begins to cultivate, while a surreal aura starts to surround her. The protagonist checks her breathing and notices something surprising, saying that she is awakening the immortal emperor physique of the family lineage. One of the creatures observes that although her bloodline was weakened and her body frail, that white light overflows with vitality and indicates the awakening of a special physique, suggesting that she turned the misfortune into a blessing after having her blood constantly extracted over the years. The protagonist then asks what it means to turn adversity into a blessing. The creature explains that in order to stabilize her condition, it will be necessary to find heavenly spiritual herbs and powerful tonics capable of fully restoring her body, otherwise her life expectancy will continue to decline more and more. But now that she is awakening an unmatched physique, this is probably connected to the continuous extraction of the immortal emperor bloodline over all those years, which ended up activating the young lady's hidden potential, although this situation is extremely rare and practically unprecedented in history. Lycan observes that even so, her life expectancy is still decreasing. The creature confirms that this is true and emphasizes that the young master must find those tonics as quickly as possible to replenish her vital energies, though it points out that heavenly spiritual herbs usually exist only in deep mountains or great rivers, making them difficult to obtain in a short amount of time. The protagonist then questions why they should search so far away, recalling that the engagement ceremony between the holy son of the Chaos Sacred Land and Chen will certainly be filled with spiritual herbs and precious medicines. In another place, imposing carriages approach, drawing the attention of the people in the city, who comment on the magnificent spectacle, recognizing that they are the envoys of the Chaos Sacred Land, bringing the engagement gifts whose formation and aura perfectly demonstrate the power of one of the 6 great sacred lands. The ceremony is celebrated with praise on all sides, being considered a perfect and enviable union, and they comment that after the engagement, the Chen family will rise rapidly, with Miss Chen being elevated to the status of Saintess. Meanwhile, on a nearby cliff, the creature suggests that it is already time to act. Lycan summons the shadow demons, and one of them immediately appears, calling him Young Master. The protagonist orders them to isolate the entire area, and the shadow demon smiles, saying that this is his specialty. Inside a boat, a leader warns his men to stay alert because they are about to reach Yanzhou City, emphasizing that the engagement gifts are extremely valuable and that there can be no mishap. A disciple responds confidently that he is exaggerating, questioning who would dare attack the Chaos Sacred Land, claiming that even if they left the gifts in the middle of the street, no one would have the courage to steal them. At that moment, the shadow demon releases a flock of crows that quickly surrounds the entire vessel, covering the sky and the sun, causing shock among the people waiting for the arrival, who can no longer even see the envoys of the sacred land. The leader asks where so many crows came from and orders everyone to prepare for battle. Suddenly, someone jumps into the boat, revealing himself as Lycan accompanied by his group. The leader demands to know who they are, and the protagonist calmly replies that they came to deliver an offering to the Holy Sun. One disciple relaxes and says it was just a false alarm, suggesting that they probably were not invited and are trying to gain the favor of the sacred land by delivering gifts. The leader orders them to leave the offering and get out of that area immediately. The disciple reinforces the order for them to hand over the gifts and leave. Lycan merely points his finger, saying that he understands. In the next instant, the disciple's eyes widen and he is killed instantly. The leader is shocked and asks how he dares to act that way, ordering them to capture the intruder. The disciples charge as a group, but the protagonist remains silent, taking only one step forward while his creatures face all of them. The leader, in despair, states that those are elite disciples of the Chaos Sacred Land and cannot understand how they are being defeated so easily. Lycan then says that he already explained it, that they themselves brought a great offering to the Holy Sun. The leader panics and tries to flee, threatening that as soon as he reports what happened, the protagonist's entire clan will be exterminated for 10 generations. But before he can escape, the servant appears in front of him with absurd speed, leaving him utterly terrified. The servant declares that he will tear out his tongue and in an instant fulfills the threat, leaving the man desperate as he clutches his mouth. All the disciples are quickly slaughtered and the creature reports that everything has been resolved. The protagonist then orders the shadow demons to disguise everyone as disciples of the Chaos Sacred Land, because he intends to give a great surprise to the Holy Sun and Qingwu. The shadow demon replies that there is no problem and uses his power, transforming the appearance of the creatures so they look exactly like disciples of the sacred land. The crows then disperse, and the people waiting below comment that they heard screams from above, but they believe that nothing serious happened. Elsewhere, a door is opened by one of the creatures, who confirms that there is an enormous quantity of spiritual herbs and precious medicines stored inside, concluding that the Chaos Sacred Land is truly generous, because those resources would be enough to support even an entire small sect. Lycan tells his sister to enter, explaining that she is at a critical moment of transforming into a special physique and must absorb all the spiritual and medicinal herbs there with all her strength. In that same place, Zir continues cultivating, and the aura around her becomes increasingly strange and intense. The creature watches, intrigued, asking what kind of special physique she is awakening, because the pressure released already at the initial stage is terrifying. The herbs begin to float, resonating with Zir's energy, while the pressure increases continuously. The creature comments that with an absorption rate like that, anyone else would already have exploded countless times. After completely consuming all the resources in the storehouse, Zir opens her eyes, and everyone stares at her. She stands up, confused, asking why they are looking at her. The creature, still shaken, asks if she realizes what she just did. Zir answers naturally that she was only awakening a special physique, and asks if she did anything beyond that. The creature explains that she absorbed all the spiritual herbs and precious medicines in that place, resources equivalent to those of an entire small sect, and that he has never heard of anyone capable of consuming such an enormous amount through cultivation in so little time, saying that even an old demon like him is deeply shaken. The protagonist then asks how she feels. Zir replies that she feels fuller and less weak than before. Lycan analyzes the situation and concludes that the energy her body was losing has been partially restored, and that for the moment there is no need to worry so much about her life expectancy. The creature adds that even after absorbing such a massive amount of resources, the awakening is still not complete and they still cannot identify what type of physique she is developing, which only reinforces how terrifying and powerful that physique will be, something capable of shocking both ancient and modern times. He also points out that the complete awakening and full restoration of her energies will require even more resources. The protagonist then declares that it is time to head to the Chen family. In the city, the people celebrate, drinking and rejoicing, while a voice invites everyone to enjoy the festive occasion for the Holy Sun and the future saintess. The patriarch asks about the preparations and whether everyone has already arrived. The steward replies that the Holy Sun and the young lady are ready, that guests from every region have arrived, and that all the great immortal sects, sacred lands, and great powers have sent congratulations, stating that the Chen family has never been so glorious. The patriarch declares that from that day onward, his family will grow rapidly and aspire to become one of the most important in the world. The steward praises him, saying that all of this is due to the patriarch's brilliant strategy and the young lady's extraordinary talent. The patriarch states that the smartest decision he ever made was to stop her from marrying that young master of the Li family in the past. in addition to personally leading the attack that destroyed the Li family and winning great merit for it. At the auspicious moment, a powerful energy spreads, and a voice announces the arrival of the Holy Son of the Chaos Sacred Land, Yuntian and Qingwu of the Chen family. The two approach, being praised as a perfect couple, with people highlighting that Qingwu possesses a special physique and that her union with the Holy Son is ideal, also claiming that it was fortunate that she did not marry the young master of the Li family. Qingwu declares that from that moment onward he will be her Dao companion and must not disappoint her. Yuntian takes her hand and promises that she need not worry, because his heart will belong only to her. Qingwu says that she believes him and states that the best decision of her life was to abandon that useless lichen and choose Yuntian. He replies that someone like the young master of the Lai family was never worthy of her, and reveals that the Chaos Sacred Land has brought a great gift, assuring her that it will be a surprise. Qingwu becomes excited and eager to see it. At that moment, disciples approach and Yuntian asks what happened, questioning whether there was some problem at the branch where Zir was being held. The disciple replies that someone rescued her and that everyone at the branch, including Hallmaster Liang, was killed, except for Bai Shuang, who had been in charge of watching her. Yuntian asks who was responsible, and the disciple says they still do not know because Bai Shuang refused to speak, and for that reason it was decided that an elder of the sacred land would conduct a soul search on her. Qingwu asks whether there are still surviving members of the Li family. Yuntian orders them to investigate at all costs and states that they must capture Zir, explaining that after years of extracting the immortal emperor bloodline, he is on the verge of reaching the great perfection of his holy body, and that this human tonic must not be wasted. The disciple withdraws, saying he understands. Qingwu comments that all of this is very strange, recalling that back then the three immortal sects had confirmed that all rebellious members of the Li family were either executed or imprisoned, and questions how someone could now mobilize forces to rescue a member of the Li family, also noting that destroying an entire branch demonstrates extraordinary power. Yuntian replies that she need not worry because, no matter who it is, no one can withstand the fury of the Chaos Sacred Land, and that on such a great day it is not worth letting trivial matters ruin the mood. Qingwu still feels uneasy, saying that she constantly has the impression that she's being watched. The patriarch reinforces that the Holy Son is right, that nothing should affect the mood on that day of celebration, and that the two of them will become famous throughout the world. At that moment, a voice announces that the auspicious hour has arrived, and representatives of the Chaos Sacred Land offer their congratulations to the Holy Son and Miss Chen. The disciples comment excitedly that this time the gifts are extraordinary, saying they heard that the cultivation resources being delivered are enough to rival those of an entire small sect. Yuntian smiles and says that the surprise has finally arrived. An object is thrown and lands on the ground before everyone. The patriarch observes that the gift is covered with a red cloth, making everything even more mysterious, and says that even he is curious. Qingwu, impatient, asks them to open it at once. The patriarch then decides to personally open the gift from the Chaos Sacred Land and calls everyone to watch. When he removes the red cloth, everyone falls silent. Qingwu watches expectantly, but the expressions soon change. Murmurs arise when they realize that the object is actually a coffin. The people are confused, asking why, on such an important day as an engagement, someone would send a coffin. The patriarch, irritated, questions the meaning of it, while Yuntian is visibly shaken. Qingwu also does not understand what is happening. Yuntian explains that this matter should have been handled by the 44th elder of the outer sect of the sacred land and asks where he is, but no one answers. Qingwu realizes that there is no one in the flying vessel, and the patriarch declares that no matter who did this, that person will not go unpunished. Suddenly, a sound comes from inside the coffin, and everyone realizes that someone is in there. The patriarch is shocked, and Qingwu asks them to check. When they open it, they discover the elder's corpse inside the coffin. Yuntian recognizes him as the 44th elder and flies into a rage, asking who dare do such a thing, declaring that killing an elder of the Chaos Sacred Land is an unforgivable offense. The people around begin to comment that someone incredibly bold is seeking revenge, because not only did they send a coffin, they also chose that exact moment to make the greatest impact. Qingwu wonders who this revenge is directed against. Someone then notices that there is something else inside the coffin. The patriarch decides to check and finds a scroll, but his expression immediately changes as he reads it. Qingwu asks what is written there, and he throws the scroll so that everyone can see it. When they read it, everyone is shocked. Qingwu is stunned when she realizes that it is a divorce letter. The people around are confused, asking who would send such a thing and, more importantly, to whom that letter was addressed. Qingwu, in disbelief, wonders whether such a thing is possible, saying that it is impossible for anyone to dare do that to her. The patriarch becomes furious, saying that this is absurd, questioning who had the audacity to send a divorce letter on the most important day of the Chen family, and demands that the person responsible appear, swearing to punish them severely. Another scroll appears indicating that Chen Qingwu was originally the young lady of a family of immortal emperors. The people then realize that it is indeed a divorce letter addressed to her. Qingwu, furious and incredulous, questions who would dare divorce her. Yuntian also erupts in anger, calling it extreme audacity and demanding to know who is behind it. The patriarch reveals that the name at the end of the letter is Lycan. Yuntian reacts with a disdain, saying that useless trash was thrown into the great abyss and should have turned to dust long ago. Qingwu, still in shock, connects the events, recalling the destruction of the branch and the rescue of Seer, and begins to suspect that he may not be dead. Yuntian rejects the idea, declaring that if someone like him managed to come out of the great abyss, he himself would call him father. At that moment, a voice echoes from inside the boat, saying that he does not have such an unfilial son. Yuntian turns immediately, demanding to know who spoke. Then the protagonist appears, revealing himself to be alive. Yuntian is utterly shocked, saying that it is impossible, while Qingwu, equally stunned, asks how he can still be alive. The patriarch watches the situation and asks whether what stands before him is real or an illusion. Lycan replies that back then, when the Chen family was facing a crisis of extermination, it was the Lai family that saved them from danger, but in return they received ingratitude, betrayal, and every kind of cruelty, and that now the time has come to settle the accounts. The people around murmur, recognizing that he truly is the young master of the Li family, and wonder how he managed to survive and escape the great abyss. Qingwu, still disbelieving, asks if it is really him. The protagonist then asks whether she liked the engagement gift he sent that day. The patriarch, furious, declares that whether he is real or not, alive or dead, if he dares cause trouble for his family, he will be torn to pieces. An elder steps forward with contempt, saying that he is nothing but a useless waste and that there is no reason for such commotion. The patriarch orders them to capture him alive, stating that he will make him pay an extremely painful price. The elder approaches confidently, but before he can even act, Lycan appears in front of him and grabs him by the neck, beginning to squeeze. The elder loses his breath and begs to be released, but the protagonist drags him to the edge of the flying boat and throws him from a brutal height, making him fall directly onto the coffin. The patriarch, shocked, states that that man was a peak expert of the second realm and questions how he could have been defeated so easily. Yuntian then asks Qingwu if she is certain that this is really Lycan, and she confirms that it is, saying that despite the change in his demeanor, there is no doubt that he is the young master of the Lai family. Yuntian concludes that the destruction of the Chaos Sacred Land Branch was probably his doing as well. Lycan responds coldly, saying that it is only a mere branch and that sooner or later he will destroy the entire Chaos Sacred Land. Enraged, Yuntian asks how he dares speak with such arrogance and orders his men to capture him in the name of the Holy Sun. The disciples step forward enthusiastically, declaring their loyalty to the Chaos Sacred Land and the Holy Sun. The protagonist then states that those who have nothing to do with this matter may still withdraw, otherwise they will be slaughtered without mercy. The people react with indignation, asking who he thinks he is to threaten them. Lycan then declares that no one will leave that place. The warriors charge at him confidently, saying that they will capture him and uncover his secret. The protagonist orders the attack, and his creatures move instantly, killing one enemy before he can even react, while another creature bites a warrior's neck until he dies. The creatures continue advancing, slaughtering everyone in their path. The patriarch sees the situation and shouts that they are demons, asking how they managed to get in there, ordering that they all be killed. One of the creatures activates a powerful formation, declaring that the entire Chen family will be refined. Intense light spread and the disciples panic, realizing that it is a deadly formation. The patriarch, alarmed, asks when that had been prepared. Lycan answers that in the past, during his own wedding, the Chen family set up a similar ambush, catching his family by surprise and causing a massacre, and that now he is only returning the same fate. Qingwu realizes that everything had been planned in advance as revenge. Yuntian, despising him, says that he is nothing but an ant, and that no matter how much he schemes, he will not escape death. The patriarch charges with a powerful punch, ordering him to take the blow. The protagonist had already been waiting with his fist prepared, and when the strikes collide, an enormous pressure spreads, resulting in the patriarch's arm being torn off. He falls to the ground screaming in pain. Qingwu runs to him in concern, unable to comprehend Lycan's strength, and suggests that they retreat to the Chaos Sacred Land and bring reinforcements. Yuntian rejects the idea, declaring that brat ruined his ceremony and humiliated him publicly with a divorce letter, which is an unacceptable affront and that he himself must kill him there. Qingwu decides to fight at his side, but Yuntian says that she can merely watch, because he alone is enough to crush Lycan with a single blow. He charges, but before he can even get close, he is struck and sent flying, suffering serious injuries. Qingwu is shocked. Yuntian rises coughing, saying it was only carelessness and that no one needs to mention it. He charges again with his fist clenched, but the protagonist intercepts him, grabs his face, twists his neck, and slams him to the ground. Qingwu runs to him and asks if he is all right. The patriarch, still in shock, states that the Holy Sun is no match for that beast even in a single exchange. Irritated, Yuntian gets up and says that he dared to strike him in the face, something unforgivable. The pressure around them intensifies greatly, and Yuntian finally draws his sword. Qingwu, surprised, recognizes that it is a sacred artifact. The patriarch becomes excited when he sees the weapon, and states that with a sacred artifact in hand, that brat will surely be subdued. Yuntian declares that at last that useless trash is worthy of forcing him to use a sacred artifact of the Chaos Sacred Land to cut off his head. Lycan looks at it with disdain and questions this so-called sacred artifact. Qingwu approaches and proposes that they attack together. In the same instant, Yuntian charges with his sword while Qingwu lashes out with her whip wrapped in spiritual power, binding the protagonist's body. She says that he is immobilized, and Yuntian uses the opening to rush forward with everything he has, driving the sword into his body and celebrating, saying that he finally struck him. Yet the protagonist remains unharmed and coldly comments that he even looks happy when he smiles. Yuntian is confused, and Lycan calls him an idiot. Qingwu realizes it first and states that the sacred artifact failed to pierce his body. Yuntian is horrified and cannot believe it, saying that even meteoric iron would be pierced by that weapon, and asks how a fleshly body could resist it. Even so, he refuses to accept it and attacks again. The protagonist breaks free from the whip through brute force alone, making Qingwu realize that he shattered the void chains without using any technique. Yuntian continues charging in desperation, but suddenly his sacred artifact breaks apart. He is stunned, unable to understand how such a thing is possible. Lycan then comments that it has been a long time since he last tasted a sacred artifact. A strange energy moves as he extends his hand, and the fragments of the weapon are absorbed directly into his body. The patriarch, in shock, asks what he is doing, and Qingwu says that this is something without precedent. A surreal aura erupts around him, accompanied by a heavy sound, and the pressure rises drastically. The protagonist says that the long-awaited increase in strength truly came from the sacred artifact offered by the Holy Sun. Yuntian, terrified, asks what kind of monster he is. Lycan then calls them an adulterous man and woman, and says that the time has come to act. He charges forward and strikes them with a devastating impact, making both of them spit blood. Qingwu senses the danger and says they need to flee immediately. Yuntian agrees, saying that when he returns to the sacred land, he will tear him to pieces. Lycan calls him naive and pursues them at frightening speed. Qingwu realizes that he is catching up rapidly and says that this is very bad. Yuntian panics and asks what they should do. Qingwu decides that he must flee first while she holds the enemy back. Yuntian is moved, believing her, and promises that he will bring reinforcements to save her. The protagonist watches coldly and says that 8 years have passed and they are still just as weak. Yuntian starts to flee, but suddenly stops when he feels his foot being caught. Looking back, he sees Qingwu holding him with the whip and saying that he is going the wrong way. He curses her in disbelief, asking how she dares do that. Qingwu pulls him in, strikes him, and coldly tells him to die in peace, claiming that she will avenge him. Yuntian is completely stunned. Lycan then hits him with a devastating blow, causing an explosion. Yuntian begs for his life, saying he will accept any condition. The protagonist stares at him, pressing his leg beneath his foot until he screams in pain. Meanwhile, Qingwu activates a magic circle and calculates that only 10 breaths remain before the teleportation matrix is complete, hoping that the Holy Sun can delay the enemy. Lycan watches and comments that she is even crueler than he imagined, saying that the most venomous hearts belong to women, since she was capable of sacrificing the Holy Sun himself to save herself. He moves toward her. Qingwu tries to negotiate, saying that perhaps they can talk and even cooperate, while realizing that he is already too close and beginning to fear that he is a true monster. Lycan states that trying to buy time is useless. Qingwu realizes that she will not be able to escape. The protagonist advances with his fist clenched, but she notices her father standing in front of her. The patriarch, with his arm already regenerated, faces the blow and says that he did not want this, that the Chen family was about to become great, asking her to rebuild the family. In the next instant, he is destroyed. Qingwu escapes, swearing that they will meet again. Lycan smiles coldly and says that killing her now would be too easy, preferring to make her experience despair little by little. Then he returns to the boat. The creatures report that everyone has been eliminated and that all the resources of the Chen family have already been sent to Zier so that she can continue cultivating. Lycan orders the retreat and the flying boat departs. In another place, the 9th young lady observes from afar and comments that it was wise not to go to the Chen family because just like in the Deep Fire sect, no one survived, concluding that that boy is becoming more and more valuable. Elsewhere, Qingwu appears kneeling, filled with guilt, saying that if the Holy Sun had not tried to save her, he would not have died, and asks the Sacred Land to send powerful experts to avenge him. The Holy Lord asks whether she is certain that it was Lycan, the young master of the family of immortal emperors. Qingwu confirms that it was, stating that she saw with her own eyes years ago as he was thrown into the Great Abyss, and that she never imagined he would return after 8 years. The Holy Lord then orders the Grand Elder to block all information, forbidding any news of the return of the young master of the Li family from spreading. The Grand Elder replies that he understands. Qingwu, still kneeling, asks what he is, and the Holy Lord replies that the Great Abyss has always been the most mysterious place on that continent, where no one has ever returned alive, and that the immortal Emperor Wuji once stated that the Great Abyss holds the greatest secret in the world. The fact that Lycan managed to shatter a sacred artifact with his own body shows that he obtained an extraordinary opportunity within the Great Abyss, and also reveals that the place offers immense benefits. Qingwu asks if the Lord intends to capture him and interrogate him about the Great Abyss, and the Holy Lord replies that not only him, but if the 3 immortal sects and other sacred lands were to discover this, all of them would try to capture him. So this matter must not leak under any circumstances, and he must ensure that Lycan is captured alive. Qingwu says not to worry, as she will personally bring him back to the sacred land of chaos. On the boat, the protagonist looks at his own hand, turned into stone, and comments that he did not expect the sacred artifact of the sacred land of chaos to evolve his physique so much, to the point that one of his hands turned into metal and stone. Zier comments about his hand, and Lycan says it is fine and that he will recover in a few days. Not understanding, Zier asks how that is possible and what is happening, and the creature replies that it is related to the cultivation path the young master chose to follow. The protagonist calls him talkative, and the creature says it will not disturb them, but Zier asks him to stay and explain what is going on. The old demon returns, and Lycan explains that his sister knows his natural talent is not the best, so in order to become stronger quickly, he walked a new cultivation path in the Great Abyss, using his own body as a furnace, as an embryo, and as a vessel, refining himself. Zier asks if that means he is improving himself in this way, if his body can absorb fragments of sacred artifacts, and if having his arm turned into metal and stone means he's forging himself into a weapon. The protagonist says she can understand it that way, since in the end his physique will become stronger and stronger, indestructible, and unbreakable. Zier asks what the price is and says he might end up becoming a humanoid weapon without emotions or thoughts. Lycan looks away and Zier hugs him, saying she does not want to see him like that and does not want to lose him again. The protagonist says it is not as serious as it seems, that a humanoid weapon is not easy to cultivate, it is a long process, and he is already looking for a solution. A pouch floats closer, and Lycan finds it strange to see Miss Zai's brocade pouch come out on its own. A paper falls, and the protagonist says the first task has already been completed, so it seems she wants him to do the second one. Lycan picks up the paper, and the old demon asks what she wants him to do this time. The protagonist replies that she wants him to find the Medicine Emperor. The old demon comments that the Medicine Emperor is an extraordinary figure who lived for several thousand years, and that he had heard of his reputation even before being cast into the burial abyss. But he has always lived in seclusion, and no one knows where he is. Lycan notices there is an address in the Valley of Blazing Fire. Zier says that the Valley of Blazing Fire is the sacred land of the Blazing Fire sect. The protagonist says that since they are going there, they also cannot let the Blazing Fire sect get away. Zier warns that the Blazing Fire sect is one of the 12 great sects of the world and possesses countless powerful practitioners, so he should not act rashly. Lycan places his hand on her head and tells her not to worry because he is no longer the same, and besides seeking revenge, they also need to recover the items from the imperial tomb of that time, as this is an ancestral instruction left by their forefather, and the very existence of the family is tied to protecting that tomb. Back then, the 3 immortal sects dominated the division of the imperial tomb, and the Blazing Fire sect should not have obtained anything, so they must recover it. Suddenly, an explosion occurs, and the protagonist asks what is happening. A maid flies over and says that people below are attacking the spirit boat without knowing its limits. A vine is launched, Lycan grabs it and shatters it into pieces. More vines advance, and the protagonist manages to grab two at the same time until one of them heads toward his sister. Lycan senses the danger and says, "This is not good," and the old demon steps forward, taking the attack to protect her. Zir becomes worried, and the old demon comments on the aura of that vine as it also wraps around the boat. Zir tells them to save him quickly, and the protagonist tells her not to worry because the old demon will not lose his life. Zir insists, saying his heart has been pierced, but the old demon states that he himself has no heart, and that, as the young master said, he will not die. So Zir questions how he can be someone without a heart. Lycan explains that the old demon's heart was torn out before he was thrown into the great abyss, and Zir, shocked, asks who could have done something so cruel. At that moment, other creatures jump onto the boat and say they will go down and eliminate everyone, as they are already tired of living. The protagonist asks who will go first, and the old demon replies that those creatures come from the evil cloud cave, as he recognizes the aura of the vines very well. The people below observe the boat, and one of them with blue hair releases vines around the vessel trying to pull it down. The disciples comment that he has excellent resources, that his natal demonic vine has already reached perfection, and that he is directly dragging the spirit boat down, saying that only such a magnificent boat is worthy of him. The boat crashes to the ground, and the disciples declare that they are from the evil cloud cave and that the spirit boat is now under their control. The old demon steps forward and says to let him handle it. He jumps to the ground, and a disciple asks why an old fool is coming down. The old demon asks which generation of disciples of the evil cloud cave he belongs to, and the blue-haired disciple retorts that he should not be asking that, ordering everyone on the spirit boat to come down. The old demon strikes him and sends him flying into the ground. The blue-haired disciple reacts by releasing vines and wrapping around his body, saying he thought he had some skill, but it was easy to capture him. The other disciples say to drain him to the last drop, and that if he dares resist the evil cloud cave, nothing will remain of his corpse. The blue-haired disciple tells him to learn his lesson in the next life and not provoke them again. The old demon smiles, and the disciple finds it strange. The old demon asks if he still does not understand and says, now it is his turn. The old man begins releasing energy through the vines, and the blue-haired disciple screams for someone to save him quickly. The other disciples rush in, but the old demon breaks the vines around his own body and uses them to attack everyone, knocking them to the ground. The blue-haired disciple, frightened, asks if he can really use the natal demonic vine and who he is. The old demon says that is a good question, and the disciple kneels on the ground begging for mercy. The old demon orders him to answer his previous question, so the disciple says he is a 9th-generation disciple of the evil cloud cave. The old demon comments that they are already at the 9th generation and that many years have indeed passed, then asks if the 2nd-generation ancestor is still alive. The disciple questions it, and the blue-haired one replies that it is said the 2nd-generation ancestor died long ago in an accident, and after that the cave prospered under the 3rd-generation ancestor. The old demon thinks that makes sense, since his heart was torn out back then, and wonders how they could not have been affected. The blue-haired disciple then asks who he really is, why he can absorb his original demonic energy and still use the unique natal demonic vine of the evil cloud cave, and what his relationship with the sect is. The old demon replies that this is another good question and says that if not for that incident, he himself would have become the 3rd-generation ancestor of the evil cloud cave. The blue-haired disciple is shocked and asks if he is really the 3rd-generation ancestor and how that is possible. The old demon then shows an item and asks if he still does not believe. The disciple, surprised, says that is the evil cloud token, and that there are rumors that this item was lost by the 3rd-generation ancestor, so he questions how it can be in his hands. The old demon, irritated, says that their so-called 3rd-generation ancestor was nothing more than a scoundrel back then. The disciple tries to understand what is happening and whether that man really knows the 3rd-generation ancestor. The old demon then asks his master for permission to be away for a few days. The protagonist replies that he does not need to say anything more and can simply go and do what he needs. The old demon thanks him and says that for so many years at the bottom of the great abyss, he has always thought of this moment, as he wants to confront that person face to face, and then asks the blue-haired disciple to take him back to the evil cloud cave. Lycan calls out to him and asks where he is going, saying he can use the spirit boat. The old demon does not understand, and the protagonist explains that he told him to go resolve it, but not alone, as he will go with him. Already at the evil cloud cave, the disciple points to the gorge ahead and says that is the entrance, warning him to think carefully, because ever since the 3rd-generation ancestor obtained the true blood of the immortal demon, the cave has developed rapidly, and its strength is already close to that of the 12 great sects, so there is still time to retreat. The creature strikes him and tells him to stop talking nonsense, demanding that he say how to enter. The disciple replies that he cannot because the demonic vines at the entrance are connected to the demonic tower, and the energy that continuously flows forms an extremely strong defensive gate. The old demon steps forward and the disciple insists it is useless, saying that only a high-level elder can open it as it is just the first line of defense. The old demon releases his magic and the vines open. The disciple is indignant and asks how he can control the vines connected to the demonic tower. The protagonist moves forward and tells them to enter. Minutes later, they arrive at another gate, and the disciple comments that the gate was forged from fragments of the Zhuanwu meteorite, and that even if the great sects attacked, they would not be able to open it. The old man then tries to strike the gate, but realizes there is no way for him to open it, suggesting that maybe the giant demon can. The hidden demon then calls the giant demon, who promptly appears with a stern expression. One of the demons comments that the guy is sleepy again, and the others agree, saying he is always sleepy and warning that now it is the big guy's turn. With that, he begins to approach the gate, and with each step, he starts to grow even larger. Frightened by that, the disciple asks who the hell those guys are, since they are the most demonic beings he has ever seen. The giant then throws a punch with all his strength at the gate, which immediately begins to crack and give in before him. At that moment, everyone is shocked, questioning whether the giant really managed to break that wall with a single punch and saying they should have told him not to use so much force. Watching the scene, the disciples become increasingly stunned, unable to believe what is happening. They cannot believe that with just one punch, that demon almost made the entire mountain collapse. However, the giant, staring straight ahead, notices that there is another gate beyond the one he broke, and disappointed, says he failed to break it. The winged beast then says that gate is truly strange, because knowing the strength of the giant's punch, it should have been obliterated even if it was made from that meteorite. Then one of the disciples intervenes, saying that if it were a normal gate, the giant would indeed have destroyed it. However, he explains that the gate is connected to the demonic tower of the demonic cave, and that the tower is the source of all the power in the cave. Therefore, he is fighting against the entire demonic tower, and once again says he had already warned them to give up, because they will not be able to advance. However, to everyone's surprise, a small explosion occurs in the gate, and the disciple is shocked to see that the protagonist, with just his fists, knocked down that ancient gate. He becomes indignant, asking how that happened, but the protagonist simply tells everyone to enter. Enraged by that, the disciple asks if he is a monster, and one of the demons explains that actually he is not. He is human, and the monsters are them, and they, the monsters, are submissive to that human. Inside, a commotion begins, with everyone asking what is happening, until they encounter the protagonist group and ask if outsiders really managed to enter the evil cave. An old man then starts approaching, asking who is there. Irritated, he questions how they dare invade that place. All his subordinates begin to salute him and comment that apparently the outsiders managed to attract the attention of the 6th generation ancestor. The ancestor then asks the invaders' names, since they do not usually kill people without names. One of the protagonist's allies then says that a mere 6th generation ancestor is not qualified to know his name, and provokes him, telling him to summon the 3rd generation ancestor. That makes the ancestor even more irritated, asking what the hell he is to demand such a thing. With that, he orders his subordinates to eliminate everyone there, and immediately they all charge at the protagonist group. However, Lycan remains calm and says the cave will be useful in the future, asking his allies to try to kill as few people as possible. The demoness, smiling, says she will carry out the order, and the enemies, upon seeing her, begin drooling, desiring to possess that demonic body. But she, using her powers, asks why they do not come together for a gentle embrace. Her power then begins to affect the enemies, who become enchanted, as if hypnotized. With that, they begin running toward the ancestor, who is left in shock. Thus, all the subordinates rush together, calling the ancestor madam and asking to play with them for a while. Furious with the situation, the ancestor says he underestimated the enemy's capabilities, as he did not expect them to know how to use evil magic. With that, he begins to advance, knocking down his own subordinates, saying he will kill everyone there without mercy. However, when he attacks, the old demon defends with ease, leaving him even more shocked. The old man then manages to absorb all the energy from the ancestor's attack, surprising him once again. At that moment, the old man begins to move forward calmly, and, concentrating his power, states that everything the ancestor possesses was granted by him. Suddenly, the ancestor's body begins to feel the attack, and soon, his body is completely controlled by the old demon, who pulls him down to his knees. With his head lowered, the ancestor says that all the power he had was drained in an instant, and the old man, with a smile, tells the foolish disciple to take him to the demonic tower. They quickly leave the place. After the battle, the subordinates begin carrying the ancestor, who says they must notify the fifth generation and warn that the fourth generation ancestors must come out of seclusion immediately. Afraid, he states that the evil cave has encountered an unprecedented enemy. Meanwhile, near the tower, a subordinate reports that they have arrived, explaining that that sacred ground is the source of all their power. Upon seeing the tower, the old demon becomes emotional, saying that he is finally back. However, suddenly he hears a noise on the ground, and before he can react, vines emerge and quickly bind him. Then a voice appears telling them to stop, and a man appears before them. He introduces himself as the fifth generation ancestor of the evil cave, and states that the path ahead is blocked. However, the vines that were binding the old man break, and he asks what exactly is blocked. The fifth generation then activates new vines, which begin to grow around the old demon, quickly surrounding him. However, without any effort, he passes through the vines, saying it is a waste of time. The ancestor becomes indignant at that and says he cannot believe what he is seeing, ordering the activation of the sect's grand protective formation to bombard that thief to death. That leaves the old man concerned, and in the blink of an eye, an energy begins to manifest before him, spreading across the sky around him. The protagonist's companions are impressed by that aura, questioning whether the old demon will be all right. Suddenly, all that energy begins to descend from the sky, heading directly toward the old man, causing a colossal explosion that sends rocks flying everywhere. The demons, worried, say that attack from the grand formation is no joke and hope the old man is fine. Even Lycan's sister becomes worried. However, the protagonist says that power has the same origin as the old demon, so there is nothing to worry about. The ancestor then starts laughing, saying that the consequence of challenging the evil cave is to be crushed and torn apart. However, he is shocked when he hears the old man's voice asking which of his eyes saw him being torn apart. The old man is completely intact, as if nothing had happened, leaving the ancestor utterly stunned. Without delay, the old man says now it is his turn and begins to use his power, making vines bind the ancestor, who desperately tries to command them to open. However, it is as if he were talking to a dog because nothing happens, and that leaves the ancestor afraid, as he realizes he is truly trapped by the vines of his own cave, something unbelievable. Then he begins to scream, begging the fourth generation ancestor to come out of seclusion because the cave is facing a serious risk of extermination. With that, the fourth generation ancestor promptly appears, saying that this is just a storm in a teacup. In an imposing manner, he introduces himself, saying he has not concerned himself with worldly matters for hundreds of years, and asks the invaders to state their purpose so he can grant them a quick death. The old demon then asks Guo Sheng, the fourth generation ancestor, if his tail is itching again and whether he needs another beating. At that moment, Sheng realizes that old man knows him and wonders how he knows his childhood name and whether that could be. The old man then shouts, telling him to come down immediately, and the fifth generation ancestor, irritated, calls him insolent, asking how he can be so rude to the fourth generation. In any case, Sheng approaches the old man and, shocked, realizes it really is him, and even though he looks worn out, he cannot be mistaken. Suddenly, he kneels and addresses the old demon as Uncle Tian. The fourth generation ancestor is shocked upon hearing that, as is the disciple, who now realizes that mysterious old man is truly extremely powerful. Sheng then asks his uncle if he had not died thousands of years ago, but Tian simply responds by asking where the third generation ancestor, Cao An, is. Sheng says he does not know, as the third generation has not been seen for at least 1,000 years. That leaves the old man irritated, so he asks about the second generation, who is his mother. Sheng replies that after learning of Tian's death, she also passed away shortly afterward, as she could not bear the pain of losing a son. That enrages the old man, as he now realizes even his mother suffered at the hands of Cao Anran. The fourth generation ancestor then asks his uncle what exactly happened, how he returned to life, and what he wants. Tian then begins to gather his power and says he naturally returned to reclaim what is rightfully his. The energy becomes more and more intense, and Sheng grows desperate, begging his uncle not to do that as the demonic tower is the foundation of the evil cave. Even so, he continues and begins to break the tower until a voice tells him to stop. At that moment, the old demon is attacked by an elder, and the disciples greet the third generation ancestor, saying he has always been a legendary figure. The old demon stares at him and calls him Dog Anran. The ancestor says that no matter how he survived, he should not have returned. An elder beside him recognizes him and says that person is Grand Master Montian, whose talent was unmatched in history, someone who defeated all geniuses of the demonic path and received the title of True Monarch Montian. The old demon says that back then he was born with a supreme demonic heart, whose vital energy and plasma were so intense they resembled a rainbow piercing the sun, something incomparable, and that he treated him as a brother, but he, out of envy, betrayed him, eliminated him, and took his heart, and now he has returned to tear off his head with his own hands. Everyone around is shocked, and the ancestor says it would be better for him to leave. He then releases his magic and summons a giant hand. The old demon advances and says that now the source of power of the evil cloud cave is his own demonic heart, and that the power generated by that supreme heart does not harm the true body, so he asks how he could possibly be injured. Then a dragon is summoned. The old demon is knocked to the ground, and the ancestor approaches, stepping on him, saying he has always been arrogant, and that it was precisely because of that he managed to eliminate him easily back then and tear out his heart, and that now he uses that heart to reach a level of power he cannot even imagine. The ancestor pins him down and says he is curious to know how someone can survive without a heart. Meanwhile, hidden, Zir asks her brother to go save him, but the protagonist tells her not to worry, because the old man saved her life and he will not let anything happen to him. Besides, as the enemy himself said, the old man has no heart, so he cannot be defeated so easily. The old demon then says he wants to know how he survived and decides to tell it. When he fell into the great abyss to survive, he injected subterranean fire magma into his own body, turning it into blood. He stands up and explains that this magma began to function as his blood, circulating throughout his body, and that he endured unimaginable pain until he managed to survive. The ancestor, incredulous, asks what kind of absurdity that is, how someone could survive with magma running through their veins. The old demon says that pain is something he does not even dare to remember, that countless times he thought of ending his own life, but endured everything driven by revenge. He continues saying that there was a moment, about 8 years ago, when he truly could not take it anymore, as he could not leave the great abyss and no longer saw any hope, until a young man fell there. He says he saw with his own eyes that young man endure pain many times greater than his to grow stronger, and at no moment did he hear even a single groan of pain from him, and it was at that moment that his will to fight returned, which is why he began to follow him. Zir hears this and is surprised, and the creature comments that among the 18 demons, all have gone through inhuman torture, but compared to that young man, they are not even close, because the young master endured thousands of times more pain than any of them, and it was precisely that almost divine willpower that made the young lady, who saw everyone as ants, begin to see him differently. The ancestor asks what the point of saying all that is, questioning if he is trying to evoke pity to spare his life, and states that it is impossible because one of them will inevitably die. The old demon replies that he seems to understand that very well, and asks if he is willing to lose his own life, right after he is struck and sent flying. The ancestor says he has already made it clear that after so many years, his strength is on a level far beyond what he can imagine, explaining that although they can assimilate the demonic energy of ordinary disciples, he has followed his own demonic path using the supreme demonic heart, making it impossible to interfere with him. Lying on the ground, the old demon asks if that is all he has. An intense aura begins to emerge around him, and the creature comments that he is also known as the Flame Demon, rarely uses fire attacks, and that this will be quite a spectacle. An immense power is released, burning the vines around. The ancestor is surprised by the scene and immediately releases even more vines, while the old demon tells him to feel the power of his vengeful demonic flames. Dragons are summoned and rush toward the ancestor, and the old demon takes the opportunity to ask if the second-generation ancestor, his mother, was also harmed by him. The ancestor replies that she made a mistake in her cultivation back then, which caused her cultivation base to drop drastically, and asks if he really wants to know the details of what happened, saying that he might not be able to endure it. The old demon replies that he had better use all his cards, otherwise he will lose his life there. The ancestor states that the evil cloud cave prospered under his command, and is about to reach the level of the 12 great sects, and that after so many years managing everything, it is natural that he has many tricks up his sleeve. Then he summons a stone man. Everyone around is surprised, and the giant strikes the old demon with force. The ancestor explains that that giant, like the stone gate of the evil cloud cave, was forged with meteoric iron from the deep turtle, and that it absorbs energy directly from the demonic tower to fight, making it extremely powerful. The old demon questions that so-called power, and says he did not even think about how they managed to enter. The ancestor admits he was surprised to see the stone gate destroyed, but says the stone man was not created only to compete in brute strength. According to him, the creature's true power lies in its demonic sound attack. The stone man opens its mouth and releases a terrifying sound, and the old demon, on the ground, grabs his ear and screams in pain. The ancestor asks what he thinks, if he can withstand that sound echoing inside his head, and reveals that he studied the supreme demonic heart for hundreds of years, that ability being an innate capability extracted directly from it, extremely powerful and impossible to defend against. The old demon tries to get up, but he is already injured. The stone man opens its mouth again and releases the sound once more, causing blood to escape from the old demon's body. The ancestor says there is no point in resisting, because not even experts of the fourth realm, the convergence realm, can withstand that demonic sound. The creature explains that this sound attacks the soul directly and belongs to a divine-level talent, showing how powerful the old man's supreme demonic heart was in the past, and adds that since cultivators below the sixth realm usually do not develop the soul, it is extremely difficult to resist this kind of attack. The partner beside her comments that she has the strongest soul among them and asks if even so she would not be able to resist, and the creature replies that her soul is strong innately, not cultivated, but that she can still try. The protagonist then says no, that he himself will deal with it. The creature warns that his physical body may be invincible, but his soul might not be. The ancestor then declares that now it is his turn to choose how he wants to die. The old demon replies that even if he loses his life, he will take him with him. The ancestor asks what he intends to do, if he's going to self-destruct, and tells him to stop. The stone man opens its mouth again and pushes him back with a sound, but suddenly someone grabs him from behind. The old demon realizes it is the young master, and Lycan asks if he forgot that he's not alone. The old demon admits he was wrong, and the protagonist says he will deal with that giant. The stone man advances, and the ancestor orders it to turn the boy into an idiot. The stone man releases all its strength, screaming intensely, but Lycan remains intact, feet firmly planted on the ground, advancing step by step. The ancestor is surprised and asks if even under the demonic sound attack he can still walk, and orders them to increase the intensity of the sound to shatter his soul and body. The stone man, with its mouth open, summons the spirit of a dragon, releasing crushing pressure, and the protagonist ends up paralyzed. The ancestor says he stopped moving and asks if he lost his life all at once, saying it serves him right. Zier becomes worried about her brother, and the creature beside her says that although she is also worried about the young master, she feels that no one could withstand the demonic sound attack, but her reasoning tells her that nothing will happen to him, so it is better to wait, because the young master will not be defeated. The ancestor continues, saying that next they will disperse and eliminate the souls of everyone there. The wind begins to intensify, and Lycan advances toward the stone man with his fist clenched. The ancestor is surprised to realize he was not defeated. The stone man is struck, and the ancestor says he does not understand how he is still alive, stating that that attack is nothing more than a futile attempt against a stone man forged with meteoric iron from the deep turtle, something far more resistant than the gate of the evil cloud cave itself. But in the next instant, the stone man is shattered. The ancestor is shocked and asks what kind of monster he is. The protagonist says his partner can handle the rest. The old demon then releases his energy and advances, saying that on that day he will make him feel the pain of a destroyed heart. He grabs him by the neck and drives his other hand into his chest. The ancestor spits blood, and one of those present, shocked, says that the third-generation ancestor has been defeated. Lying on the ground and spitting blood, the ancestor says he cannot recover the heart because the supreme demonic heart is now the foundation of the evil cloud cave, and if he touches it, all of the cave's strength will collapse. The old demon begins to use his powers on the tower and says that it doesn't matter. The tower starts to take damage, and the ancestor says that the cave of the evil cloud is also a home, that everyone there are descendants, and that what he is doing is blocking the cultivation path of everyone. The old demon asks why, when he dug out the heart back then, he did not think of him as part of the family. Stones begin to fall, the disciples feel intense pain and ask what is happening, realizing that their energy is being rapidly drained. The ancestor then says that now he must understand, explaining that over the years all the disciples cultivated using the supreme demonic heart as a foundation, and their lives are already connected to it. And that is how the cave rose from an insignificant sect to nearly reaching the level of the 12 great sects. He continues saying that if the heart is touched, all disciples will suffer the consequences, and the cave will fall into oblivion again, doomed to destruction, and asks if he truly has the courage to watch so many die because of him. The old demon remains silent. The ancestor points to a man and says that is Gusheng, patriarch of the 4th generation, someone he watched grow up, and says that if the heart is removed, his power will also disappear, reducing him to a mortal who will not live more than a few days. The old demon looks to the side, and the ancestor tells Gusheng to persuade his uncle. Gusheng replies that they do not need to worry about him because ever since the heart was unearthed, the entire cave has been indebted to him, so he should not carry that burden, and that it is something that must be reclaimed. The ancestor tells him to be silent, but Gusheng continues saying enough is enough, that although the evil cloud cave is not a righteous sect, even demons have principles, and he despises what was done back then. Suddenly, everything begins to break apart, and the ancestor says he will regret this until he is destroyed. The heart appears embedded in a trunk, wrapped in vines, and there is someone beside it. The old demon is surprised, and the creature comments that this is interesting because there really is someone inside the demonic tower. Gusheng asks if it is the second-generation ancestor. The old demon calls out to her, and the woman opens her eyes, moves quickly, and asks if he has returned. The old demon becomes emotional upon seeing her and asks if she is still alive. The woman replies that he suffered a lot over the years. The old demon kneels and says he did not expect to see her again, and she says she did not expect it either. He then asks why she is in the demonic tower. The woman remains silent for a moment and replies that she is there refining the supreme demonic heart. The old demon is surprised by the answer. She extends her hand and places it on his head, and he tries to speak but cannot as she stops him. At that moment, the ancestor, smiling, says he had already warned that he would not be able to handle the truth. The woman removes her hand and the old demon asks why. The ancestor asks why and says that can he still not see it, explaining that the one who truly wanted to dig out the supreme demonic heart back then was the second-generation ancestor, and that all of it was planned by her. The old demon looks at his own mother and says he cannot believe it. The old woman replies that he should not blame her, saying that the blame should be placed on the supreme demonic heart itself for being too powerful, something unique across all ages, a talent that reaches the heavens, and that even though he was her son, she could not resist taking it from him. Zir, outraged, says she cannot believe someone could have a mother like that. The old woman then explains that the supreme demonic heart is both a blessing and a curse, and that back then countless demonic sects coveted that power, while the evil cloud cave was weak and incapable of protecting it, able to be destroyed at any moment because of it. That is why, instead of allowing other sects to take the heart, it was better for the cave itself to take it, because only then could they survive, preventing him from being killed by other, more powerful forces. She states that he himself has already seen the result of that, since by using the demonic heart as a foundation, the cave kept growing continuously and is now on the verge of rivaling the 12 great sects, which is an impressive achievement. The old demon says he never imagined everything would end like this. After all, she is his mother. The creature watching comments that this is a devastating blow to him, because in the great abyss, the only person he wished to see again was his own mother. Yet he never imagined that she would be the one who tore out his heart. A truth cruel beyond measure, capable even of driving him to ruin. The old woman then asks if he understands and says that he was always obedient, so he should listen to her one last time, rest in peace, and consider it a sacrifice for the evil cloud cave, because everyone will thank him. The old demon remains silent. Gusheng intervenes and says he never imagined that an ancestor of the evil cloud cave could be so shameless, questioning whether she is worthy of Uncle Tien. The ancestor reacts, asking how he dares say such a thing, reminding him that the second-generation ancestor is present, and asking if he wishes to die. Gusheng replies that a tiger does not devour its own cub, and that the evil cloud cave should not have an ancestor like this. And the old woman asks what right he has to say that, declaring that most of the energy he cultivates comes from the supreme demonic heart, and that if there are guilty ones, then everyone in that cave is equally responsible. Gusheng then says that if that is the case, he will return that sinful body to Uncle Tien. He falls to the ground and says he has already returned everything, and now it is his turn. The creature observes and comments that she did not expect the evil cloud cave to have someone so honorable, because he truly dispersed all of his own cultivation. The old woman says he is seeking his own death and asks if he is trying to provoke her. A vine pierces through Gusheng's body, and he is killed. The old woman then approaches her son and says goodbye, but someone grabs her arm. It is the protagonist who asks how she dares touch one of his people. The old woman replies that this is a matter between her and her son, and that he has no right to interfere. Lycan asks whether someone like her is worthy of being the old demon's mother, and she replies that he is courting death. The protagonist releases his power and she remains still. Lycan tells his partner to get up. The old demon questions what the point of continuing to live is, and the old woman replies that not even her own son wants to live, so he should stop meddling and leave, because this is a matter of the evil cloud cave. The protagonist strikes her and tells her to go to hell. The old woman reacts by saying he is insolent, and Lycan replies that he does not care whether it is an internal matter or not, because the old demon's affairs are his affairs too, and if she says one more word, he will make her pay dearly. The old demon calls out to him, but the protagonist cuts him off and tells him to listen, declaring that this woman has no right to be his mother, and that if there is someone in this world who has ever treated him with the kindness of a father, that person is him. The old woman asks what kind of being he is, and Lycan replies that he is the one who pulled him out of the great abyss and gave him a second chance, so he will not allow him to die now, nor fall again. The old demon is surprised to hear that. Gusheng says that he grew up by his side, followed him to learn cultivation and understand the principles of life, and that he bears no guilt in any of this, so he must endure and reclaim everything that belongs to him. The old demon remains silent. The protagonist orders him to stand up. The old demon looks at him, begins to rise, and says that he understands. The old woman asks what he understands and says that she was the one who gave him life, and that if she orders him to lose his life, then he must lose it just like all the others. Lycan strikes her again and says that he did not allow her to say anything else. The old woman falls to the ground. The old demon approaches and says to leave it to him. The old woman stretches out her hand and pulls the heart bound among the vines, and the heart releases an absurd aura. She says that over the years she refined that supreme demonic heart and has already reached 90% of the process, and that with it she is invincible, immortal, and no one there will be able to escape. An immense energy explodes around her, and the creature comments that that old witch, with the blessing of the supreme demonic heart, had her strength increased drastically, reaching the level of a sect leader. The old demon tells him to fall back, while the heart approaches him. The old woman says that is his demonic heart, and the old demon replies that refining it is a joke, because he himself said that it is a supreme treasure unique across all ages, so it could not be refined so easily. The old woman advances, demanding that he give the heart back. The old demon raises his hand, releases vines, and strikes her. The old woman asks what he is doing, and he answers that he is returning her sin back to her. The old woman denies it, saying she is his mother and cannot be treated this way, calling him an ungrateful son and asking why he does not die. The ancestor watches and comments that the second-generation ancestor has been reduced to that state until he himself also falls to the ground. The old woman asks what he is doing and whether he still intends to kill her. The old demon says he will not kill her, but he will make her pay for everything she did by throwing her into the great abyss. The old woman panics and says he cannot do that to her because everything was for the evil cloud cave. The old demon says that is enough and tells her to stop lying to herself, saying he understands her intentions, that she wants to use the demonic heart to live forever, and asks who in this world can truly live forever, telling her to stop deluding herself. The old woman insists, saying that she is his mother, that blood speaks louder, and that they can share the supreme demonic heart and live forever together. The old demon is enraged when he hears that and seals her mouth with vines. Then he turns to the young master and asks for a few days, saying that he will resolve all the affairs of the evil cloud cave and hand it over completely to the young master. The protagonist thinks that taking over the evil cloud cave is also part of his goal in coming there. After all, to face forces such as the 3 immortal gates and the 6 sacred lands, he needs to build up power of his own, and the 18 demons are still far from enough. 5 days later, the old demon says that Gusheng has temporarily taken command of the evil cloud cave and also placed the supreme demonic heart under his control, and that now the most important thing is to strengthen the cave as quickly as possible so that it can serve the young master in the future. Gusheng replies that he can rest easy because the supreme demonic heart is extremely powerful, and he is confident that he will be able to raise the strength of the cave's disciples to a new level in a short time. Elsewhere, the 9th young lady watches and finds it strange, wondering how Lycan and the others suddenly disappeared, until she sees a flying boat and realizes that the region belongs to the evil cloud cave, which makes her interested. In the Valley of Deep Fire, Zier says that this is the sacred territory of the Deep Fire sect and reminds them that they recently destroyed an outer branch of this sect on her family's estate, so they still need to act cautiously. The old demon comments that the Medicine Emperor has been famous for a very long time, being on the same level as the sacred masters of the 6 sacred lands, but that his temperament is extremely eccentric and he rarely appears, and that before he fell into the great abyss, he had already searched for traces of him in hopes of receiving some blessing, but found nothing. The protagonist then jumps down and tells everyone to stay there because he is going down to take a look. Moments later, a warrior comments on whether this is reliable, questioning whether the Medicine Emperor really lives in seclusion in that small village, saying that if he could find him, it would be incredible, and that obtaining one of his pills would be immense luck. Lycan realizes that he is not the only one looking for the Medicine Emperor. Suddenly, a voice announces that Luo Qianran, the chief disciple of the Deep Fire sect, has arrived. Luo Qianran approaches together with Li Yunjiang, and people comment that he is the greatest prodigy of the Deep Fire sect, saying that there are rumors he has already reached the 3rd realm, condensing the Xuanhuang Peak. being capable of rivaling the prodigies of the sacred lands, and that this time, in the contest of the secret realm of the prodigies of the 12 sects, he intends to reach the top. A warrior orders the insignificant people to step back, the horse leaps with the carriage, and someone steps down. It is Luo who comments that the 1,000-year-old medicine emperor was right under the nose of the Deep Fire sect this whole time. Yunjiang says that even so, that could only happen to her, because with her fortune and luck, when an opportunity appears, no one can stop her. Luo says she likes hearing that his words are pleasant, and that he is strong, unlike the other elders and guests who always wear serious expressions and are extremely boring. The protagonist notices something in the distance, while the guards block the people from approaching and tell everyone to move away quickly. Yunjiang says he knows that everyone there is searching for the Medicine Emperor, but since that is the territory of the Deep Fire sect, they will not stop anyone from looking. However, they must first allow the beautiful, incomparable, intelligent, decisive, and extraordinarily powerful young lady to enter. The people step aside, saying it is better to show respect to the Deep Fire sect and let Luo explore the place first. The guards then ask why the protagonist is still standing there and ask if he is deaf. Yunjiang watches closely as if recognizing something familiar. Lycan stares at him, and the guards say he is abusing their tolerance and must leave immediately. At that moment, Yunjiang notices something different. The protagonist moves forward and attacks them, telling them to get out of the way. Luo reacts by saying that in the territory of the Deep Fire sect, someone daring to attack her disciples is a sign that he has lost his mind. Yunjiang watches carefully and thinks that that face looks very much like someone, far too much, wondering how someone could resemble the young master so closely. He keeps staring, and Lycan calls him by name, asking if he is tired of staring yet. Yunjiang is startled and recognizes the voice, realizing that it really is the young master. Luo takes an offensive stance and asks if he dares call a guest elder by name, declaring that he is seeking his own death. Yunjiang says it is not worth acting against that boy, but steps into an attack stance and tells him to listen. The protagonist calls him a traitor, and Yunjiang thinks that he has no choice. He must restrain him first and explain later. Lycan hits him. Yunjiang's eyes go wide. He coughs and wonders when the young master became so strong. The protagonist says that today he will eliminate him. Yunjiang, frightened, thinks that he almost died from that strike and decides that he has to take him away from there before anything else. So he starts running. In another place, Yunjiang stops, and Lycan finds it strange, asking why he stopped running. Yunjiang, in silence, kneels and says that he is about to kill the wrong person. The protagonist questions why there was any need to become a traitor and join the Deep Fire sect. Yunjiang replies that he is not a traitor, but an undercover agent. Lycan asks if he is disguised, and Yunjiang, still kneeling, explains that he worked as a guard for the Li family for many years, and when the family was exterminated, he ran back but arrived too late. He says that at first he wanted revenge, but he was at a disadvantage and knew he would die without accomplishing anything. So he decided to infiltrate the Deep Fire sect, first to find a chance to rescue the imprisoned clan members and then to seek revenge at the right moment. The protagonist asks if they never suspected him, and Yunjiang replies that in the beginning he stayed in an outer area, and since only the family head, the young master, and a few people knew him, no one else became suspicious, allowing his infiltration to succeed, reaching a high position and gaining Luo's trust. Lycan tells him to stand up. Yunjiang rises and asks why he came there, and the protagonist replies that he came to find the Medicine Emperor and destroy the Deep Fire sect. Yunjiang warns that the Deep Fire sect is one of the 12 great sects of the world with extremely powerful strength, and suggests that he infiltrate with his help, since he has already advanced quite far inside the sect. At that moment, someone approaches. It is Luo. Yunjiang says that she arrived at the right time, that there was only a misunderstanding, and that he will introduce the young master, saying that he is an incomparable prodigy and an old acquaintance. Luo watches him and questions this so-called incomparable prodigy, saying she sees nothing special about him. Yunjiang says that the young master wants to go with him to see the Medicine Emperor. Luo replies that that is great and states that he can be her servant. The protagonist asks whether she really thinks she's worthy of that. Luo is surprised and irritated, saying that this is outrageous and that she needs to teach him a lesson. Yunjiang steps in and asks her to calm down, saying that if he were someone willing to serve blindly, he could not be considered a prodigy, and reminds her that the young master needs to act discreetly because they still need to infiltrate the Deep Fire sect. Lycan tells her to speak properly, otherwise he will beat her until she turns red. Yunjiang watches irritably, and Luo asks what he said. Yunjiang tries to smooth things over, saying that all incomparable prodigies are like this. Luo moves forward, saying that she is also a prodigy and wants to see what he is capable of. Yunjiang explains that that is her special skill, the Deep Heaven Finger, capable of piercing anything and destroying everything. The The protagonist extends his hand and Luo calls him an idiot, saying that she is going to pierce straight through his palm. When she attacks, Lycan easily blocks it with his hand. Luo is surprised and asks how that is possible, whether his hand really suffered no damage at all. The protagonist reacts and says that she is asking to be beaten. Luo is shocked, and Yunjiang realizes that the situation has slipped out of control. Luo asks if he really dares do that, completely enraged, and Lycan does not care and repeats the strike. Luo says that she is going to kill him, while Yunjiang tries to keep both of them under control. Luo throws a metallic sphere and the protagonist catches it with his hand. Yunjiang warns him to throw it away, saying that it is an earth-burst star thunder, extremely powerful. An explosion occurs and smoke fills the area. Luo says it serves him right, declaring that no one has ever dared touch her before, and that guy deserved to die, telling them to leave because he must already have been reduced to dust. Lycan then tells her to stop. Luo is startled and Yunjiang asks if he really survived. Luo says that is impossible, because that was an attack from the Deep Fire sect. The protagonist replies that nothing is impossible. Luo is even more surprised to see that he is completely unharmed and asks how he managed that. Lycan says that now it is his turn. Yunjiang asks him to calm down, saying that they still need to infiltrate the sect and that he should not attack her. The protagonist replies that he has his own methods. Luo asks what he intends to do. Lycan turns her around and Luo reacts by saying that he still dares. The protagonist begins hitting her repeatedly and asks if she is convinced now. Luo replies that if he wants to convince her, he will first have to defeat her. Lycan says that then he will continue until she cannot take it anymore. A little later, Luo asks him to stop, saying that she understands now. The protagonist asks whether she still wants him to be her servant, and whether she still intends to stop him from seeing the Medicine Emperor. Luo becomes embarrassed. Lycan hits her again and she complains, asking why he is still continuing. The protagonist says that she hesitated and therefore deserves punishment. Luo says that she does not want this anymore, and states that as long as he can find the Medicine Emperor, she will not stop him. Lycan then makes one last request, saying that the Deep Fire sect owes him something, and that he intends to recover it personally, asking whether there are any objections. Luo replies that she has no objections, and even welcomes him with open arms into the Deep Fire sect, while thinking that when they get there, she will take revenge and make him pay for everything. Yunjiang watches all of this and wonders what the young master went through during those years, noticing how much more resolute he is than before. Sometime later, Yunjiang looks around and comments that it seems like just an ordinary village, questioning whether the Medicine Emperor would really be there. Luo says that someone like the Medicine Emperor would never live in such a place, and concludes that it is probably nothing more than a rumor. The disciples report that they already searched the whole village and found nothing. Yunjiang agrees, saying that the Medicine Emperor is probably not there. Luo then decides to leave and says that she will take him back to the Deep Fire sect. The protagonist insists that the Medicine Emperor is there and thinks that in this world, anyone can be wrong except the lady in purple. Luo calls him ignorant, saying that he is nothing more than an unknown cultivator, and asks where so much confidence comes from for him to claim that, saying that she will not waste any more time on him. Lycan asks them, since that place is called the Sacred Land of the Deep Fire sect, what is so special about it? Yunjiang explains that the sect received that name because in the past there used to be a faint, innate flame of deep fire there. But over time, the spiritual radiance of that flame completely dissipated until it went out, leaving the sacred land with only the name. The protagonist then asks where the innate deep fire used to be, and Luo points in that direction. Lycan tells them to head to the house nearest that spot. A moment later, they approach and see an old man sitting there, smoking calmly. Luo asks if he is saying that the old man inside is the Medicine Emperor, and the protagonist replies that before he was not sure, but now that seems very likely. Yunjiang reacts in disbelief and asks whether he is serious, saying that the man there is just an ordinary old fellow without any trace of spiritual energy, and questions in what way he could resemble the Medicine Emperor, stating that it is downright absurd. Lycan then asks for an audience. Luo asks if he has gone mad and whether he really believes that old man is the Medicine Emperor. Yunjiang decides to ask directly and asks if he is the Medicine Emperor. The old man asks what was said. Yunjiang repeats the question, and the old man replies by asking whether his urine is yellow. Yunjiang insists on the question about the Medicine Emperor, and the old man keeps asking what is yellow. Yunjiang gives up and says there is no point in asking because it definitely is not him. Luo comments that there is nothing more to discuss, and states that he is clearly just a confused old man. Lycan then states that he is the Medicine Emperor, and says that if they do not believe it, they can make a bet, an earth-burst star thunder. Luo immediately accepts and says that if he loses, he must kneel and admit his mistake to her. The protagonist agrees without hesitation. Luo says that this is pure arrogance and declares that that day she will make him bow his head and admit his mistake, then decides to go inside to drag the old man out and prove her point. The moment she steps inside, something happens, a light turns on, and she is surprised. Yunjiang senses the danger and says that this is not good because it is a defensive formation. Carnivorous plants rise up all around and the disciples immediately run to save her, but they are thrown away. Luo, already alarmed, asks whether he really is the medicine emperor. The old man then asks how that boy managed to determine that he is the medicine emperor. The protagonist replies that senior medical emperor's disguise is perfect, identical to that of a common mortal. But there is one inconsistency. The body appears to be at least 70 years old, while the aura corresponds to that of a 30-year-old mortal, and that makes no sense. The old man says that he is not bad and acknowledges that those subtle differences in aura are not something ordinary cultivators can perceive. Lycan says that he has a request, and the emperor replies that he must wait until he manages to enter the house alive, then they can talk. The protagonist advances, breaks the barrier, and enters. Yunjiang asks if Luo is alright. Even then, Luo says that she wants to make another bet, that whoever enters the house first and finds the medicine emperor wins. Lycan accepts. Luo begins cutting through the carnivorous plants and declares that she will not lose, keeps moving forward until she manages to break free from them and says that she will not fall for that trap. Luo declares that this time she won, but more plants immediately appear right after. Yunjiang asks what is happening. The old man falls to the ground and says that the air is toxic, reminding them that they forgot that the emperor's specialty is the use of invisible poison. A carnivorous plant approaches, and Luo realizes that the situation has turned bad, saying there is no way to escape. The protagonist releases his absurd power toward the plant, destroys it, and picks the girl up in his arms. Luo realizes that he really did save her, and Lycan tells her not to get the wrong idea, only that if she lost her life, who would pay the bet? Luo replies angrily that he is provoking her. The protagonist says that he saved her again, and that this counts as one more Earthburst Star Thunder. So now she owes him a total of 3. Yunjiang says that he is there too and asks not to be forgotten. The door opens and they enter. Yunjiang observes that it was to be expected of the medicine emperor because the house truly hides a secret world, something worthy of someone of that level. Luo comments that all the precious herbs planted there are extremely rare and each one is priceless, and that if it were not for the medicine emperor, those spiritual herbs would have already attracted countless people who would seize them the moment they appeared in the world. The emperor says that no one lost their life and that they were lucky. Luo introduces herself and says that she is the current chief disciple of the Deep Fire sect, stating that she would like to invite him to the sect. The emperor replies that there is no point in someone like her speaking of such things, and that not even the sect master would have the qualification to invite him. Yunjiang comments that he is exactly as the rumors say, hard to find, hard to invite, and hard to deal with. The emperor says that the 3 of them should go back where they came from, and that there is no need to say goodbye. Luo comments that his temperament is troublesome and remembers hearing that someone had to visit him 100 times before managing to move him, so she says they should go back for now and try again later. Yunjiang agrees that it is better to retreat first. Lycan says there is no need, stating that he may not see the others, but he will certainly see him. Luo asks whether he's not afraid to say something so arrogant and states that before the emperor, he is nothing more than an ant. The protagonist walks forward and says that he has an urgent matter to deal with that day. Luo tries to stop him and asks if he is crazy, saying that if he angers the medicine emperor, none of them will have a good outcome. The emperor says that his urgent matters are none of his concern and tells him to leave immediately or he will be turned into fertilizer. Lycan remains standing there. Luo says he is quite crazy and asks what good could come of insulting the medicine emperor. The emperor calls him disobedient and says he is asking for a beating. Luo covers his face and says that even the gods cannot save him now. The two attack together and the emperor notices a letter. After seeing it, he is extremely surprised, kneels on the ground and says that it is their handwriting. Luo asks if the medicine emperor is kneeling, and Yunjiang, also shocked, asks what that is. The protagonist touches his shoulder and says he is getting too excited, and the emperor says he is thrilled and asks whether they asked him to come pick him up. Lycan replies that Miss Zai asked to meet him, and the emperor says she was wearing purple, that it is indeed her, and asks what his honored name is. The protagonist answers with his name. The emperor tells him to come in and tells the two others not to stand around since he is with the young master. They can treat the place as if it were their own home and take whatever they want. Luo, very surprised, asks what is going on, and Yunjiang replies that he also cannot understand it, but he is deeply shocked. The Emperor says he does not know what brought the young master there, and Lycan says he does not know either. The Emperor extends his hand toward Lycan's body, releases his power, and says that in that case he would like to examine his healing power. The Medicine Emperor widens his eyes and says that is impossible, that he must have sensed something wrong and will try again, asking how this could be possible. After examining him, the Emperor says that he is taking himself as a furnace, as a cultivation technique, as a weapon, as a rare treasure, annihilating everything, and he has discovered that there really is someone in this world capable of cultivating in such a way, a completely new path of cultivation. The protagonist says that his insight is sharp, able to see everything at a glance, and the Emperor says that this cultivation path is destined to be incredibly difficult and that his body has probably already shown abnormalities. Lycan shows his stone hand and says that is exactly what has happened. The Emperor says his body has already begun to materialize, and if this continues, he will transform into a human-shaped weapon, and, although invincible, he will lose all human emotions. The protagonist is stunned and asks whether he has any solution, and the Medicine Emperor says that this must be why the Mists asked him to find him. A talent like the young master, unmatched in this world, is opening a path for all cultivators, and if he loses his life, it would be the greatest pity in the world. So whether for the sake of the Mists or for his own reasons, he will do everything in his power to help him. Later, in the same place, Luo asks why that boy still has not come out and says that they say when the Medicine Emperor meets someone, no matter who it is, it never lasts more than 15 minutes, and 3 hours have already passed. She asks how he can have such a handsome face. Yunjiang replies that the young master has excellent foundations, and that after joining the Deep Fire sect, he may want to go to the secret realm of the Dark Emperor City, which is about to open, to refine himself, and that they should not disturb the young master anymore and leave him in peace. Luo asks about letting him go and says absolutely not. She has decided to confront him and will not give up until he kneels and admits his mistake. Yunjiang sighs. Inside the house, the Emperor paces back and forth, saying that this will not work, that will not work either, and that there must be a way. The protagonist says that if he really cannot solve it, then he should forget it. But the Emperor says not to bother him because he is already having some ideas. In all his life, he has never encountered such a difficult problem, and this must be the Miss's test for him, so he cannot disappoint her. Lycan thinks he already knew that the Miss had an extraordinary life story, but he did not expect it to be this profound because the revered Medicine Emperor, in his attempt to win her approval, is breaking his brain like this. A moment later, the Emperor says he already understands, and the protagonist asks him to explain. The Medicine Emperor says that the unique cultivation method in this world consists of slowly consuming nothing but life force, as long as one can find a way to replenish vital energy. Lycan asks about life force, what it is, and how it can be replenished, and the Emperor asks if he knows the difference between mortals and cultivators. The protagonist answers that it is the difference in control over power, that mortals at most have the strength of an ox, while cultivators can move mountains and stir the tides, pluck stars and moons. The Emperor says that is correct, but in the end it is still a difference in vital form, or rather a difference in the hierarchical level of life. He explains that a cultivator's life force has already transcended to a higher level, and similarly, the difference between a prodigy and an ordinary cultivator also lies in life force. So, as long as the young master can continuously replenish that life force, he can delay the moment when he completely becomes a human-shaped weapon. Lycan asks whether that means he must defeat prodigies. The Emperor replies that he is smart and understands perfectly, because only incomparable prodigies possess the vigorous life force that will be useful to the young master. The protagonist thanks him. The Emperor asks what his next plans are and whether he needs any help, telling him to speak freely. But Lycan replies that he does not need it because he cannot help him. This makes the Emperor say he is underestimating him. He states that his name resounds across the continent, that there is no one who does not know him, and that there is nothing he cannot resolve. So he should say it. The protagonist then answers that he wants to destroy the 3 immortal sects, the 6 sacred lands, and the 12 sects. This makes the Emperor turn his back and say that, besides that, he is there to refine a great medicine using the last remaining vestige of innate deep fire in that place. And now that the great medicine is about to mature, he will leave soon. He adds that if the young master needs to find him in the future, he only needs to activate the token. Lycan takes the token the Emperor throws. A moment later, the two of them come out. Yunjiang comments that he is out, and Luo says that so much time has already passed, asking what the Medicine Emperor talked about. Then the protagonist asks whether she wants to know. He says to trade a heaven-destroying thunder bomb for it, but Luo tells him to dream on. Lycan says to settle accounts first and that she should hand over the 3 heaven-destroying thunderbombs. Then, Luo throws a bag toward him and says he can take it. The Emperor adds that the method mentioned earlier only serves to delay the process. As for how to cure him completely or fully open this cultivation path, the young master will still need to explore it on his own. The protagonist replies that he understands. Outside, the disciples who had been waiting say they are coming out and ask whether the medicine emperor is inside. Luo replies that yes, he is, but she advises them not to enter. The disciples become excited upon hearing this and ask why they cannot go in, since this is a great opportunity. But Luo replies that it is because people will lose their lives. At that moment, someone approaches riding a tiger. Luo recognizes him and asks why Liang Feihu is there. The disciples also recognize him and comment that he is naturally lustful and that the demon tiger he rides is a tigress. Liang says that Qianran is there too. Luo tells him not to call her that, since they are not even that close. Then Liang asks whether they are not close, and tells her not to forget that the two of them have a marriage agreement. But Luo retorts that he is not worthy of her. This makes Liang say that unless he loses his life, she can only marry him, because his divine demon tomb is among the 6 upper sects of the 12 sects, and the deep fire sect would not dare to break that engagement. Luo asks when he plans to lose his life and says she will be waiting. This makes Liang grind his teeth and ask who that boy is, saying he does not look like a disciple of the deep fire sect. But Luo replies that it is none of his business and tells them to go. They are returning to the sect. At that moment, Liang steps in front of the protagonist and stops him from passing. He asks whether he did not hear him, since he asked who he is. Lycan tells him to get lost. This irritates Liang, who asks whether he really dares to insult him, and he gestures, ordering his tiger to bite him to death. The people around comment that it is over, that the boy was careless, and that he provoked Fei Hu of all people. Then the tiger lunges. Yunjiang warns him to be careful, explaining that the divine demon tomb has a unique method of controlling demons and that demon beasts are extremely ferocious. But the protagonist, with a bomb in his hand, throws it. The tiger does not even understand what happened before an explosion occurs, making Yunjiang say to forget what he just said. Liang, furious, says that was his dazheng and then rushes forward in anger, asking whether he dares to eliminate his dazheng and whether he knows how many lonely nights the tiger comforted him. He says the boy deserves to lose his life, but the protagonist slaps him across the face, shocking everyone. They comment that the boy is so arrogant, daring to hit Fei Hu, the biological son of the master of the divine demon tomb. Then Liang says that it does not matter who he is, because from now on he, his family, his friends, and even the dog he raises will not escape. Lycan charges and throws him against the stone on the ground, and Liang says he will turn him into a beast companion. The protagonist punches him, and Liang, though injured, says he belongs to the divine demon tomb, but Lycan hits him again in the face. Liang tries to protest, but has no time, because the protagonist keeps striking him repeatedly until he tries to ask him to stop. Lycan hits him once more, then Liang takes out a bag and says he is buying his own life, explaining that there are 1,000 spirit stones inside. The protagonist hits him again and replies that it is not enough. Liang then says that is his protective talisman, capable of withstanding a blow from a powerful expert, but Lycan throws another punch and says it still is not enough. Liang hands over another item and the protagonist asks what it is. The disciples around react, saying it might be the legendary token for entering the secret realm of Dark Emperor City, explaining that the legend says this realm is about to appear and only those who possess a token can enter. They add that as far as they know, only prodigies from various sects possess this symbol, and it is extremely precious. Liang then says he can let go of him now and thinks that the other is just an ignorant cultivator, imagining that when he returns and gathers his people, he will dig up the other's ancestors to the 18th generation and whip their corpses. Lycan uses his power to hit him again. Liang falls to the ground and insists he has already bought his own life. The protagonist replies that he bought his life but did not say he would not leave him crippled. Then Lycan places his hand on Liang's head and begins to release his power. Liang realizes what is happening and wonders if it is life force, understanding that only by killing or crippling someone is it possible to absorb that overflowing life force, and he feels that vigorous vitality truly affects him. A voice comments that he is the beloved son of the master of the divine demon tomb, even more favored than the elder brother Feilong, who possesses the divine king physique. Luo observes that he was crippled without any hesitation, and says that he acts with extreme arrogance, without considering the consequences. The protagonist asks whether there is any way to deal with this, and says he can fully bear the consequences. Luo replies that there is no possibility whatsoever, and asks whether he does not realize he is in serious trouble, stating that relying on the medicine emperor's knowledge will not solve the situation because the divine demon tomb will not let this go unanswered. Lycan says that the divine demon tomb is next. Luo replies that by crippling Liang, he actually helped her break off the engagement, and in a way he benefited her, adding that if he is willing to submit to her, everything can change, and he can leave the past behind and save his own life. The protagonist replies that she is not exactly beautiful, but she has great ambitions. Luo gets angry and asks who said she has great dreams, who said she is not beautiful, and whether he really dares to call her ugly. In another place, they arrive at the Deep Fire sect. Luo asks whether he has thought it through, and whether he is sure he wants to return with her. Lycan replies that he is already here. Luo asks his name and says that if something happens in the Deep Fire sect, at least he will not go unnamed. The protagonist replies that they usually call him the Crazy Young Master, and that she can call him Crazy Lee. Luo says that, as expected, the name suits him, because he is a lunatic. The disciples approach and say that the senior sister is back. They gather around her and present items, saying that this is a 7 treasure spirit hairpin they found recently, and that only she is worthy of wearing it. They also show a phoenix stone and a 1,000-leaf herb. Yunjiang explains that as the chief disciple, she is the direct disciple of the sect master of the Deep Fire sect and also the future sect master, which is why she is extremely popular among everyone, and that now that Liang has been crippled, her popularity will probably increase even more. The 7th elder asks whether she learned anything from this trip, and the disciples greet him respectfully. Luo replies that the medicine emperor really is in the sacred land in the Deep Fire Valley, but that he has a peculiar temperament and the trip brought no benefits. The 7th elder says that the medicine emperor's presence there is extremely important and asks why she does not go to his room to explain the details, mentioning that he just received a new enlightenment tea. Luo replies that it is unnecessary since she still has other matters to handle. The 7th elder asks what matters could be more important than the medicine emperor and says she does not need to be so reserved in front of him. After all, he is not much older than her, and she can think of him as an older brother. But Luo replies that there is no need. The 7th elder says it does not matter, that she will understand one day, and inwardly thinks that her body can only be his, and no one else may have it. Then he looks at Lycan and says that person is not a disciple of the Deep Fire sect, asking what he is doing there. Luo replies that his name is Crazy Lee, and that he said the Deep Fire sect owes him something, and that he came to collect that debt. The 7th elder laughs and says that is a joke, questioning how the dignified Deep Fire sect, one of the 12 great sects of the world, could owe anything to anyone, and asks whether she fell for a swindler's trick. Yunjiang interjects and says the two of them are old acquaintances, and that he is not a swindler. The 7th elder then asks what exactly the sect owes him, and the protagonist replies that it is his life. Yunjiang silently thinks he is too blunt and wonders whether this is really the moment to say something like that. The 7th elder gets angry and asks whether it is his life that is owed, questioning whether that boy is an idiot, and reiterates whether he really said he came to the Deep Fire sect to collect a life, concluding that if he is not an idiot, he does not know what he is. Lycan then says to go, but the 7th elder tells him to stop, saying he is not finished speaking yet. The protagonist replies that he does not want to waste time with him, and the 7th elder says he is courting death and orders him to stop again. Without answering further, Lycan throws a heaven-destroying thunder bomb at him. The 7th elder catches the object in his hand and asks what it is, saying it looks like a thunder bomb capable of destroying the heavens, until the explosion happens and hits him directly, leaving him burned. In another place, the protagonist comments on the sect's protective formation and the treasure where the heaven-destroying thunder bombs are stored. Yunjiang replies that the young master is truly unparalleled, because he saw the Deep Fire sect's weakness at a single glance. He explains that the heaven-destroying thunder bomb is the sect's exclusive supreme weapon and the foundation of its survival, and that legend says only innate deep fire can be used to create it. However, that fire was extinguished long ago, and each bomb used means one fewer available. Even so, over the years, the sect treasury has accumulated at least tens of thousands of these bombs. He adds that anyone who wants to threaten the Deep Fire sect must consider whether they can withstand tens of thousands of such explosions, and the protagonist asks where the treasury is. Yunjiang replies that the location is no secret and points out that it is just ahead, but explains that the real problem is that the treasure is protected by the sect's defensive formation, so first that barrier must be broken. Lycan asks where the core of the formation is, and Yunjiang replies that it is at the top of the Golden Pagoda, a sacred artifact of the Deep Fire sect normally used to train disciples. He adds that reaching the 8th floor already brings great benefits, while the formation core is on the 9th floor. The protagonist then decides he will climb the Golden Pagoda. The next day, one of the men says that he is only a rogue cultivator and questions why they are putting in so much effort, claiming that he alone is enough. Luo replies that that man's body is extremely strong, and she has already had difficulty against him before, so this time they cannot act carelessly because she needs to save face. The senior brother steps forward and says not to worry, stating that he, Qian Guangguan, who has cultivated for 50 years, is completely reliable and that she can await good news. Another disciple adds that Qian's cultivation has already reached the peak of the second realm, and that among so many disciples he is among the top 10, guaranteeing that he will help the junior sister restore her reputation and even give the opponent a good lesson. The moment Qian charges forward, he is shoved and falls directly to the ground, leaving everyone around stunned. While the protagonist simply keeps walking toward the exit, the disciple, indignant, says that boy is sinister and asks how he dares to ambush Qian. Lycan keeps walking without stopping, and Luo asks where he is going. The protagonist replies that he is going to challenge the Golden Pagoda. The disciple laughs and says the Golden Pagoda is not something an ordinary person can face, explaining that the place has its own defensive mechanism, and that anyone who does not belong to the Deep Fire sect will not merely be expelled, but eliminated directly. A moment later, already in front of the Golden Pagoda, Lycan looks at the structure and thinks it is truly extraordinary, and that if he can absorb that power, his strength will leap to another level. The disciples ask whether someone really reached the 5th floor and who it could be, commenting that the 5th floor lit up. Shortly after, they say it is the 7th elder because they heard he was hit by an explosion the day before and was seriously injured, and that the Golden Pagoda has the ability to heal injuries, which is why he challenged it first thing in the morning. They also question who would dare attack the 7th elder, commenting that although he holds the title of elder, he is actually practically the same age as the others, and only occupies that position because he is the son of the great elder. Another floor lights up and one of them announces it is the 6th floor, saying the 7th elder reached it, while another admits that he truly deserves to be called a prodigy. In another place, the 7th elder walks and says all his injuries have already healed, and now he needs to find that boy to take revenge. The disciples congratulate him for reaching the 6th floor of the Golden Pagoda, and say that for someone his age, reaching that level truly makes him a prodigy of the generation. Upon seeing the protagonist, the 7th elder says he is right there, and that this saves him the trouble of looking for him, stating that now it is his turn to take revenge, and that if he does not eliminate him, he will not be able to relieve the hatred he feels. Lycan then shows another bomb and asks whether he is sure he wants revenge. The 7th elder is shocked, and asks why he still has heaven-destroying thunder bombs, and how many Qianran gave him. The 7th elder then says that the boy wants to challenge the Golden Pagoda, explaining that only elite disciples or above can enter there, and that he cannot enter without a token. The protagonist asks about that token and whether he has one. The 7th elder replies that he just came out of the pagoda and reached the 6th floor. Lycan asks him to lend him the token, and the 7th elder asks whether he is dreaming, saying he would rather skin him alive and asking whether he really thinks he would lend him his token. The protagonist advances, and the 7th elder says he is courting death, then strikes, but Lycan blocks the attack. The 7th elder is shocked, and the protagonist takes something from him. The disciples react by saying he is daring to lay hands on the 7th elder and is asking to die, saying this is a huge affront to the Deep Fire sect. The 7th elder, however, tells them to wait and let the boy go, explaining that for someone outside the sect, failing the Golden Pagoda challenge means instant death, and says he wants to see on which floor he will lose his life. Luo comments that once inside the Golden Pagoda, life becomes unpredictable and advises him not to seek his own death, but Lycan replies that she should not interfere. Luo says he is irritating her. Then the door opens and the protagonist enters. A voice echoes saying that ancient horrors grow day by day, and that fear only accelerates this growth, stating that only by walking the path of immortality and reaching extraordinary power is it possible to survive complete destruction. Lycan thinks that according to what Yunjiang explained, the Golden Pagoda was obtained by the Deep Fire sect from an ancient battlefield, and that each floor contains a special anomaly. He understands that anomalies are living beings or objects with extremely bizarre characteristics, many of them being nearly unsolvable or invincible existences, capable of instilling fear even in experienced cultivators. Suddenly, something approaches. The protagonist looks to the side and sees a wooden man. Lycan finds it strange and wonders when that man appeared, since he did not notice his presence before, observing that he does not seem special at all since there is no life force fluctuation. He then comments that the stairs to the 2nd floor are right there, and that if he is not bothered, he does not intend to bother anyone. In the next instant, the wooden man moves quickly. The protagonist notices the movement and says it moved the exact moment he turned his back. He concludes that, as expected of an anomaly, that thing managed to approach without being noticed, But he also notices that when he keeps his gaze fixed on it, it does not move or cause damage. Lycan finds that interesting. Outside, a disciple comments that he entered the second floor right after arriving on the first and asks why that boy has not moved yet. He adds that the Golden Pagoda is meant only for elite disciples and that someone like him is not qualified to be there, saying they can explain better how it works. The seventh elder states that the first floor test is simple for those who know the rules, but without understanding how the anomalies work, death is inevitable. He then says he will simply wait to see the severed corpse of that boy and questions why that child still has not lost his life. Luo observes that it seems he has figured out the rule, explaining that as long as he keeps staring at the anomaly, it will not actively attack, and that by turning his back to head to the second floor, he can move forward without worry. The seventh elder asks if she told that child the rules of the first floor, and Luo replies that she did not. The seventh elder continues watching through the mirror and comments that it really seems she said nothing, and that foolish boy has indeed turned his back. In the trial, the wooden man moves at extreme speed and attacks from behind, and the seventh elder, watching, tells them to observe his head being separated from his body. However, in that very instant, the protagonist grabs the puppet's hand and says that now it is his turn. Lycan breaks both of the anomaly's arms and holding them, moves forward without hesitation. The seventh elder, shocked, declares that it is impossible, saying the anomaly should be invincible and questioning how he managed to do that. Luo is also puzzled and wonders whether the anomaly is truly invincible, since the boy managed to defeat it, and begins questioning what exactly his cultivation foundation is. An energy starts circulating around the protagonist, and he realizes that it is life force. Understanding that eliminating anomalies can grant this kind of energy, so he decides to continue forward to see what the second floor holds. Lycan ascends, and the seventh elder, still watching through the mirror, comments that the artifact cannot show what happens on the second floor, but states that the boy is far too reckless, and that, even though he passed the first, he will certainly lose his life on the next. Luo agrees that the second floor is much more difficult and explains that the secret to passing is to leave behind a part of the body, even if it is just a strand of hair, because otherwise the anomaly will pursue him until it eliminates him. She also reveals that the anomaly on this floor once defeated the Grand Elder, forcing him to cut off his own finger to survive. In the trial, the anomaly in front of the protagonist speaks and says that he is ill, offering to examine him. The protagonist observes that it is a humanoid anomaly capable of speech. The anomaly insists and says it is waiting for an answer, but Lycan refuses, stating that he does not allow men to examine his body. The anomaly then advances and says not to blame it for using force. The protagonist comments that it is fast, but easily dodges its attacks. The anomaly insists that he cannot escape, but its scissors are destroyed, leaving it shocked. Lycan grabs it by the neck and says he never claimed he would dodge, adding that its face is not symmetrical and that he will fix it. He strikes it, and once again an energy circulates around his body. The protagonist then concludes that each floor of the Golden Pagoda has an anomaly and begins to wonder whether these entities continuously reappear. He realizes that if that is true, he may be able to repeatedly absorb life force there, so he decides to test this hypothesis. Lycan sits on the ground and begins absorbing the energy. After some time, the anomaly reappears, and the protagonist wonders if it is another entity, but it repeats the same words, offering to examine him. Without hesitation, Lycan advances and defeats it with a single strike. He absorbs the energy again and realizes his life force has been restored, so he decides to keep waiting. Outside, the disciples comment that he is probably stuck on the second floor and say that, as expected, he overestimated himself, questioning whether he really believed anyone could invade the Golden Pagoda. Sometime later, Lycan defeats the anomaly again, but this time, he does not feel any energy being absorbed. He concludes that it is only possible to obtain life force in the first two eliminations, and that on the third time, there is no more gain, thus understanding how that floor works. Meanwhile, the disciples begin whispering among themselves, and the seventh elder says there is no need to keep watching, stating that the boy has probably already lost his life inside and that everyone can disperse. Luo, however, disagrees and says not necessarily because that boy is not as simple as he seems. The seventh elder insists there is no reason for hope, saying that someone who has remained so long on the second floor can only be dead or incapacitated, and that there will be no surprises. Suddenly, another floor lights up, and Luo observes that the third floor has been activated. The seventh elder says that even so, that is his limit and that he has no chance of reaching the fourth floor. Immediately after, another floor lights up, and the seventh elder, surprised, asks if the fourth floor really lit up. A disciple, confused, questions what is happening, and comments that the boy was stuck for so long on the second floor, asking how he managed to advance so quickly to the third and already reach the fourth, stating that no one has ever passed the third floor at such speed. Another floor lights up, and the disciples say it is the fifth floor, watching closely. They comment that upon reaching the sixth floor, he has already matched the seventh elder's record and that he is advancing through the floors faster than they can blink. Soon after, another level is reached, and the disciples are shocked, asking if the eighth floor will also light up, since among the younger generation of the Deep Fire sect, no prodigy has ever reached that level. Then the eighth floor lights up, and they say that an outsider has truly created a miracle. The seventh elder questions how he managed to climb to the eighth floor in one go, and a disciple asks about that boy's background, saying he is surpassing the sect's prodigies, and that even the seventh elder does not compare, even joking whether he might be the young lady's son, and whether she has taken an interest in him. Luo tells everyone to shut up, and asks what kind of nonsense they're saying. The seventh elder states that some wild boy from nowhere is not worthy of her. Suddenly, the light on the eighth floor goes out and the first floor lights up again, leaving everyone confused, asking what is happening since he had clearly reached the eighth floor and now seemed to have returned to the beginning. In the trial, the protagonist comments that he can take advantage of another round from bottom to top, accumulating benefits. The puppet says that evil is growing and that he may choose to succumb to evil or lose his life because of it, but Lycan breaks it in half and says he chooses to eliminate evil. A dark energy spreads, and the protagonist notices the environment change, appearing in another place and wondering where he is. Creatures observe him from above, and Lycan realizes it is a terrifying aura, a completely bizarre world. Noticing that the energy there is similar to that of anomalies, so he concludes that he may have eliminated too many anomalies and been forcibly dragged there. A voice in the darkness asks whether he chooses submission, obedience, or transformation, but the protagonist replies that regardless of the option, he naturally chooses to resist, realizing that this is a test of willpower. Lycan faces the entity and asks what it is, then a face appears, and says it has never seen someone with such strong willpower, to which the protagonist replies that now it has. The face says they have met again. A light appears, and Lycan realizes he has returned, commenting that not long ago that world was filled with a sinister aura, but for him it is no difficulty. He recalls that the Great Abyss is filled with places far more dangerous and sinister, and concludes that if the anomalies in that pagoda are tainted by some evil, then the origin must be an extremely powerful entity, finding all of this interesting because it indicates that this world still hides many secrets. Outside, the disciples observe that only the first floor is lit, and Luo says there can only be one explanation, that although the boy passed the first floor, he likely died on the second. The seventh elder agrees and says that the fact all 8 floors lit up before must have just been a malfunction of the Golden Pagoda. The disciples agree with this explanation, saying they already suspected it and that it was impossible for an outsider to surpass the seventh elder, adding that it serves him right since invading the Golden Pagoda and dying inside is exactly what he deserved, and that it was all just a misunderstanding as they thought they had found someone capable of crushing the sect's prodigies. The seventh elder says he will go retrieve the boy's body if there is anything left. At that moment, another floor lights up, and the seventh elder, surprised, asks if the second floor lit up again. Luo replies that he should save his breath, as she already said that boy is not simple. Then the floors begin lighting up again, from the first to the 8th, leaving everyone completely shocked, asking what that boy is doing, saying they understand nothing, but that it is unbelievable. Inside the pagoda, already on the 8th floor, the protagonist climbs the stairs and says that the 9th floor is where the core of the formation of the entire Deep Fire sect is located. Upon reaching the 9th floor, Lycan observes the environment and confirms that the core is indeed there, but notices the place is filled with killing intent, with danger in every direction. The protagonist leaps forward and numerous weapons are fired at him, but Lycan activates the 9 Dragons barrier and blocks all the attacks. Outside, people find the delay strange and question that if he managed to pass the 8th floor, why he has not come out yet and whether he truly intends to enter the 9th floor. The 7th elder says that in fact he hopes he does, because that is the most dangerous place in the entire Golden Pagoda, and also where the core of the protective formation of the Deep Fire sect is located, capable of destroying even powerful cultivators, stating that if he really enters, it will be pure foolishness. In the trial, the protagonist holds something in his hand, the smoke around dissipates, and the sphere he carries begins to crack. Lycan observes and says it is time to leave, because as expected, the weakened 9 Dragons barrier could not fully withstand the attacks. The door opens and he leaves the place. Outside, the disciples comment that he is a prodigy who reached the 8th floor and lament that he is not a disciple of the Deep Fire sect. Luo then states that by reaching the 8th floor, he has become the strongest among all generations of the sect and says she can directly recommend him to the sect master so that he enters as a true disciple. The 7th elder immediately disagrees, saying that with him the sect would have 3 true disciples, and questions what right someone of unknown origin would have to join them. Luo replies that even though she does not like Crazy Lee, she can change her attitude for the sake of the sect and asks if he is willing to join the Deep Fire sect. Lycan replies that the 7th elder already refused. Luo counters that she is recruiting talent and recognizes his potential, so he should not interfere. The 7th elder raises the possibility that he is an infiltrator from another sect or even a cult member, saying no one can guarantee otherwise. Luo says she was the one who brought him there and believes he is not a cultist, stating she will take full responsibility if anything happens and that she will speak with the sect master. The 7th elder, irritated, thinks she might be falling for that boy and decides he will not allow anyone to take from him the woman he has chosen. Yunjiang then asks the young master how he is, and the protagonist summons a sphere and says he already understands. Yunjiang is shocked and says that is the formation core, saying he cannot believe he actually managed to obtain it, and asks when they should act. Lycan replies that it will be in 3 hours. Yunjiang finds the urgency strange and asks if they should not wait longer to plan better, but the protagonist replies that he has already waited 8 years and will not wait any longer. Yunjiang then says that to increase their chances of success, they need to obtain 1 more item. Lycan asks which, and Yunjiang replies that it is the Grand Elder's communication stone, explaining that this item is with the 7th elder since he is the Grand Elder's son, and adds that the Grand Elder is on the verge of death, and without that stone, even if something happens, he likely will not appear, which would remove an extremely dangerous variable. The protagonist says he will get the item. In another place, Luo comments that Crazy Lee's talent is something she has never seen before, and that if he joins the Deep Fire sect, the new generation will double its strength, ensuring an advantage in the next Dark Imperial City competition. The 7th elder opposes again, saying he invaded the Golden Pagoda and should be executed, and also claims his intentions are suspicious, recalling that the newly established outer sect of the Deep Fire sect in the Lee family was completely destroyed, and that they have not yet investigated it, concluding that this madman from the Lee family must be thoroughly interrogated. Luo replies that she knows he does not like the boy, but reiterates that Crazy Lee is a rare and unmatched prodigy. The sect master then appears and says he just received information, asking if it is true that that young man crippled Liang. Luo confirms and says Liang provoked him first, adding that even without Lee's intervention, she herself would have wanted to cripple him. The sect master says the two must leave now, because he still needs to meet representatives of the Divine Demon Tomb. Luo asks if the people from the tomb are really on their way and asks him to help the boy, but the sect master says he has already made his decision and orders them to leave. The 7th elder watches irritably and thinks she is determined to help that boy, so he asks why she does not come to his residence to have tea. Luo refuses, saying it is not necessary. The 7th elder insists and says the people from the Divine Demon Tomb will not let Lee escape, asking if she has really thought it through. Luo asks if he has any way to protect him, and the 7th elder tells her to come with him, as it is not appropriate to discuss that there. In another place, already in his residence, the 7th elder serves tea and asks her to drink. Luo replies that he should get to the point as she is not there to drink tea. The 7th elder insists, saying that since she came, refusing enlightenment tea would be disrespectful not to him, but to herself. Luo drinks the tea and asks him to speak. The 7th elder then says there is nothing more to discuss, and states that the boy is doomed. Luo becomes angry, loses her strength, and falls into the chair, starting to sweat coldly, realizing she is extremely weak and concluding that something is wrong with the tea he gave her. The 7th elder says he has liked her for a long time, and that despite being the Grand Elder's son and holding the position of elder, she never gave him any attention. But she just met that boy, Crazy Lee, and already shows so much concern, asking if he has no dignity. Luo asks what he really wants, and the 7th elder replies that he wants her to become completely his, saying that from that moment on, the two of them will be Dao companions and will rule the Deep Fire sect together. Luo, with tears in her eyes, says that if he dares touch her, the sect master will not let him go unpunished. But the 7th elder replies that threats are useless, because in making this decision, he has already considered all consequences, and says he will give her an experience she has never had. He grabs her and places her on the table, and Luo demands he release her, saying that if he dares touch her, she will eliminate him. The 7th elder replies that he only fears that when she wakes up the next day, she will be too busy loving him. Luo asks who will save her, and he replies that no one will come, because he has already ordered that no one approach that courtyard. At that moment, the protagonist enters and asks if he is busy. The seventh elder asks who dares interrupt him and soon realizes it is Crazy Lee. Luo calls out to him. Lycan calmly sits down and tells him not to be surprised, because he came to borrow something again. The seventh elder questions why he insists on treating him like this, and says that since he appeared, he will eliminate him in front of her to show what kind of man she should choose. Luo warns him, saying he is using the Grand Elder's 3-elemental spirit bell and tells him to run. The seventh elder activates the artifact and asks if he thinks he can escape, saying that Bell is the only sacred artifact of the Deep Fire sect. Luo realizes the situation and says it is over. Inside the bell, the protagonist begins destroying it with his bare hands. The seventh elder watches in shock and asks what that means. Lycan breaks the artifact and comes out, and the seventh elder, in disbelief, asks if he is human or a monster. Luo is also amazed and says destroying a sacred artifact like that is beyond imagination. The seventh elder then states that by destroying the sect's sacred artifact, he has completely sealed his own fate, and that even if Qianran tries to intervene, it will be useless. The protagonist strikes him and says he does not need to worry about that. The seventh elder, indignant, says he is an elder of the Deep Fire sect and asks if he really dares hit his face. But Lycan replies that not only will he punch him, he will also take his life. Lying on the ground, the seventh elder asks if he really intends to kill him, and says that would require 10 times more courage, reminding him that he is the Grand Elder's son. The protagonist hits him again and knocks him down, and the seventh elder still asks if he truly dares to kill him. Luo intervenes and asks what he is doing, saying this will cause a huge disaster. Lycan replies that it does not matter and identifies the communication stone. Luo tells him to leave immediately, saying everything happened because of her, and that since he killed the seventh elder to save her, he should leave the Deep Fire sect because she will take responsibility. The protagonist replies that she is overthinking and that this has nothing to do with her. Luo gets angry. At that moment, a robust figure appears and asks where he is. Lycan replies that he arrived just in time because the battle is only beginning. It is the third general of the Divine Demon Tomb who says that since they handed over that person so quickly, the Divine Demon Tomb will be in their debt. The sect master responds courteously, saying the two sects are close allies and that Qianran has a marriage agreement with Liang, asking how they could ignore this relationship because of a stranger, and states that as soon as that boy appears, he himself will capture him. Shortly after, the seventh elder's body is thrown to the ground, already lifeless. The sect master recognizes the body and asks how this happened. A disciple confirms that the seventh elder is dead, and the sect master demands to know who is responsible. The protagonist replies that it was him. The sect master then asks why he killed the seventh elder, and says that if he does not present a convincing justification, he will be torn to pieces. Luo intervenes and says everything started because of her, explaining that the seventh elder tried to act indecently toward her, and that the protagonist only killed him while trying to save her. The sect master asks if that is true, but says that even so, the seventh elder is the Grand Elder's son, and even if he made a mistake, it would be up to the sect to punish him, concluding that an outsider killing an elder of the Deep Fire sect is an unforgivable crime. Luo says there is a reason for all this, but the sect master interrupts her and orders her to leave, saying that if the boy has any last words, he should say them now. The protagonist replies that what she just said is wrong. The master declares it is too late to beg for mercy, and adds that even without the seventh elder incident, with the 3 generals of the Divine Demon Tomb present, he would already be doomed. Lycan replies that he is overthinking, and states that it was not an accident because he killed the seventh elder on purpose. Everyone is shocked upon hearing this. The third general comments that it is no surprise he dared attack Liang, the Tomb Master's son. The sect master orders the guards to capture the boy, saying he wants to hear him admit regret. The protagonist repels them with a single strike and asks if they came to die. A powerful impact spreads, and those present comment on the brutal strength, questioning whether he is a monster. The third general advances and says he will handle it personally. He strikes with a violent punch, creating a huge impact, and says the boy overestimated himself as he was taken down with a single blow and is nothing before him. A disciple notices that the boy disappeared. The third general is surprised, and the sect master says he is using a technique to escape, ordering everyone to pursue him and activate the sect's protective formation, surrounding the intruder so he cannot escape. Luo observes that now cleverness is useless and admits she cannot save him. In another place, the protagonist lands on the ground and says that this is the right place. The disciples surround him, and the third general asks if he still intends to run, telling him to surrender so he can at least keep his body intact. Lycan replies that no one said he was running. The third general says he is bluffing and that he will break his bones to see if he can still talk. The protagonist blocks the attack, and the third general is surprised, asking if he really managed to stop it. Lycan replies that he is mistaken and says he did more than just block. The third general tries to attack again, but his arm is broken in the next instant, leaving everyone shocked. He screams in pain and says all the bones in his body are broken, unable to believe what just happened. The protagonist says that weak vitality is still better than none. The disciples, frightened, ask how that is possible, saying the third general's body was destroyed with a single strike, questioning whether the boy uses some evil art and say they must eliminate him at all costs. Otherwise, they will not be able to explain this to the divine demon tomb. The sect master becomes furious and says this is an affront, declaring he will personally handle it. He attacks Lycan, who is struck and falls to the ground. The disciples ask if he died, saying the sect master's true deep fire art is an extremely powerful secret technique and that the boy has no chance. However, the protagonist stands up without any injury and comments that it hurts, but it is interesting. The disciples are shocked to see him standing again. Luo observes the situation and says she saw his potential, questioning whether it would not be worth recruiting him. The sect master activates his supreme technique, deep fire, true art, burning heavens, and ruined earth. Luo comments that this strike once eliminated a fifth realm expert at the mixed golden core level. Lycan observes that, as expected of the deep fire sect master, that power is truly impressive. The sect master replies that he does not need to waste time with someone like him, and says he will eliminate him quickly, without allowing him to remain arrogant. Yunjiang then appears from behind and attacks, telling him to prepare to die. Luo is surprised to see that. The disciples are confused and ask what is happening, saying the guest elder attacked the sect master. The sect master is enraged and asks if he truly dares betray the deep fire sect, questioning whether he feels no guilt after all the trust Qianran placed in him over the years. The protagonist says that this is not betrayal. Yunjiang reveals that he spent all those years in the deep fire sect only waiting for this moment. The sect master orders them to be killed immediately, and the guards advance together. He also asks if the two of them really believe they will leave alive after ambushing him. Lycan replies that this is only the beginning, and the sect master asks if he still maintains that attitude in the face of death, demanding to know what his true final move is and telling him to show it. The protagonist takes out a bomb and says he will do as he wishes. The sect master recognizes the artifact and says that is the celestial star Thunder, earth-shattering explosion of the deep fire sect, asking how he obtained it. Luo confirms it is the celestial star Thunder, earth-shattering explosion that she gave him, explains that he has already used two and that this is the last one, asking what he intends to do and stating that a single blast poses no threat to the sect master. Lycan simply smiles, and Luo finds that reaction strange, asking whether that would really work. The protagonist replies that the party has just begun. Then numerous stones are scattered, causing destruction all around, and the disciples begin to fall one after another. Luo realizes the severity of the situation and says he cannot do this. Lycan states that he came to reclaim what the deep fire sect owed him, and that now he will take everything. The sect master senses the danger and says the situation is serious, ordering them to stop him immediately because he is trying to blow up the treasury. The disciples panic and say it is over, explaining that tens of thousands of celestial star thunder, earth-shattering explosions stored in the treasury are about to detonate. A colossal explosion occurs and spreads throughout the area. In another place, creatures stand on a boat and one asks why there has been no movement yet. The old demon recalls that his title is Crazy Young Master and says that if he entered the deep fire sect, there would be no peace. Shortly after, they see a massive explosion in the distance. The creature reacts, saying it finally happened, stating that it knew something would occur, but did not expect it to be of that magnitude, comparing the impact to an earthquake and questioning whether the entire deep fire sect would be reduced to rubble. The old demon then orders Gusheng to inform all the disciples of the malignant cloud cave to completely surround the deep fire sect and not let anyone escape. Gusheng departs immediately and announces that the malignant cloud cave army is mobilizing. Meanwhile, something begins to be launched into the air and the old demon orders everyone to advance, telling them to invade the deep fire sect and leave no one alive. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new content. Thank you.